This is beautiful. What is that, velvet?
Peace and love is the key.
You are now about to experience the J&J-Life podcast with your host, Reya'Sekhmet.
But my name combines Raya, which means a connection to Ra.
J&J-Life podcast, please
Smash that like button. Peace and love is the key.
Peace and power, family. I'm Reya'Sekhmet. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the J&J-Life podcast, where we talk about the stuff that really matters from an African-centered perspective. I want to thank the ancestors and elders for all they have done and are doing. Peace to Baba and Mali Mbaruti, and to all the other warriors, scholars, and J&J Ma'atians out there putting in the work. Abibi Fahodie, Abibi Tami, and Abibi Wanwan. Today, we're going to dive into a series of topics that are as important and complex as they are controversial. Topics ranging from Makes Black People Conquerable all the way to African-centered consciousness and an African-centered response to the LGBTQIA homosexual agenda against the African family. Sitting in on the discussion today, we have Baba Olatunji and Mwamba, Baba Batu Shakari, and Baba Mkuu and Baba Erasure on the show to help bring clarity to our understanding for supreme consciousness. Peace, family. How's everyone doing on this fantastic day?
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Sure, beautiful. So, Babas, as I've been researching, and one thing is crystal clear, and that is, there's a lot of confusion around the topics we're going to discuss today, and it's time to clear the fog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Ashe, young warrior Sekhmet. Okay, Babas. So let me go over some of the simple guidelines with this dialogue. We definitely want to honor the sacredness of the space. So each of you may respond briefly to the same core question, offering your unique lived perspectives. And we will have specific questions for each one of you in your respected area, to which if you feel you want to expound on, far as the other Babas go, on that particular question, please jump in as well. That would be fine. But we will ask with reverence to keep answers around the 5-minute mark range to maintain the flow and the structure. But I do know, Reya'Sekhmet knows that we all can be long-winded, right? So if time runs long, you may hear a gentle nudge, but all out of respect, of course. Ashe?
Ashe.
Babas, which elder among us holds the longest trip around the sun? Please let it be known to the family.
What was the question?
Who's the oldest among us?
Who's the oldest among us?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I think might be Mkuu. I'm not sure.
74. 73.
Yeah, I'm the baby.
74 was a good year.
Awesome. So, Baba, since you're the elder of the elders, may I have permission to continue?
Oh, absolutely.
Ashe. So, lastly, family, as we move toward the closing episode, I came up with a method to select the one who will give the final word. So, the elder whose name begins with the earliest letter in the alphabet will close out the episode. Basically, I think that'll be Baba Batu Shakari. This final reflection will serve our seal. Ashe.
Ashe. Sound like Baba Shakari. You got the final word on on the episode. So, with that, buckle up. That's what I heard, because we're about to get into some serious business, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get it on. All right.
Absolutely. So, family, before we even talk about building anything, I gotta ask, why do people think they can break us, use us, and walk away clean? Why do they think we won't fight back? I say that to ask my first question, and this is for the family that may not know. But what makes Black people conquerable, and who is the they that we continually refer to? For this question, Baba Olatunji, please kick us off. Then Baba Mkuu, and then the anchor will be Baba Batu Shakari.
Well, when one examines being conquerable, we have to understand who our enemy is and how they operate. Our enemy uses supreme violence to impose its will on us. They also used, after they imposed the will for us to not initially fight back, they began to employ psychological measures and religious measures to make us docile. They also employed the tactic of attacking, making sure our women saw the vicious part of the attacks. That's where they used the psychology on the woman. So, and oftentimes our women would in trying to save their sons or their husbands' lives, would try to keep us from fighting back, because these people were and are extremely vicious. And when we say these people, I'm talking specifically at this moment. I'm talking about Caucasians. Although the Arabs of Western Asia oftentimes were just as vicious. But in this case, we're talking about Caucasians. I generally steer clear of the word white. That's just my thing. Something, if I want to be nasty to them, I'll call them Neanderthal, Denisovan, Cro-Magnon, troglodyte, mutant leucoderms. That's when I want to be nasty towards them. That's a scientific term where I'm pretty much calling them cave beasts, which is because that's where their evolutionary beginnings are, in terms of once they begin the process of losing their melanin. So I'll stop there and let somebody else chime in.
Appreciate that, Baba. I'll share.
Yeah, I think that everything that Baba Olatunji has stated is absolutely correct. I mean, if looking at it in historical terms, you can go through stages where we were, we maintained our belligerence and resistance towards being enslaved, but I found by looking back on my research that there was a lot of resistance basically once we, well, I guess right before we got into the dungeons of West Africa. There was a lot of resistance there. And then coming across the Atlantic and other bodies of water, because we went to other places as well. And then into the North American continent, we were very resistant on the slave plantations. But what I found too, as we went generation after generation after generation, it's sooner or later, any culture, any people, any race is going to wilt under that kind of pressure. And we find ourselves where we're at right now with this so-called, I guess this give up attitude that we've adopted. It's not something that we are proud of, but it's something that it really was almost inevitable. The constant battering and the foot on your neck and everything else that we went through over the generations, it's difficult to come up out of that. But we find that we still have pockets of resistance. We still have pockets of change. We still have pockets of, if you want to call it, cultural revolution. And even now we have a great revolution going on now culturally, where we think in a mindset, a sovereign, when they say sovereign, don't get it wrong. We're not talking about trying to get a nation. We're talking about a sovereign frame of mind, sovereign consciousness, African consciousness. So we see that coming back now. But what makes us conquerable is years and years and generations of pummeling. And it's hard to come out of that. That's just the basic premise and foundation of all of that, of why we are the way we are.
Ashe. Baba Shakari, take us home on the question.
Okay. Well, first of all, there's been a lot that has contributed to putting us in our present day circumstance and condition as a people. There's no question about that. But the seed was planted thousands of years in ancient Kemet. Okay. So we didn't just get here to this place along the way, thousands of years after the fall of Kemet. So we're talking 6,000 plus years of those seeds having been planted that has put us in the condition that we're in today. Okay. And those are seeds that we planted. It wasn't something that Europeans did or Arabs did or any of the other enemies who presently are destroying us did to us. No, the seeds were planted by us. Okay. One of the principal individuals in the African world who planted those seeds was none other than Menes, the first pharaoh of ancient Kemet. Okay, so this is where the seed was planted for us to suffer not only global enslavement, but at this point, global annihilation, because that is what the African world is facing today. It's not just a question now of us trying to become free and independent because that's what we want to do and that's what we know we should be. It's not just that. It's way past that at this point. Right now, it's life or death. You and I are either going to achieve freedom and independence from all foreign domination and control, or we're going to be buried. We're going to cease to exist as a people on this earth. Okay? So sovereignty, which is total freedom and independence from all foreign domination and control, because that's what sovereignty is. It's not just a state of mind. Sovereignty means that you want total freedom and independence, not only of your mind, you want total freedom and independence of every aspect of your being. That means I want my mind, body, spirit, and everything else to be under my under my control, under my power, and under my control. For a nation of people to do that, they have to establish a functional civilization and culture that's going to allow them to do that. For you to do that, you got work to do. African people have serious work to do. I'm not just talking about surface stuff. I'm not just talking about us knowing our history, knowing what our enemies have done to us. It goes way beyond that. I've said this once, if I've said it 1,000 times. Enemies don't care. They care very little. I'll put it like that. Enemies care very little of what their victims know. They care very little about that, because enemies know that the bottom line is, what are you doing with what you know? What are you acting on? How have you put that knowledge that you've come into the awareness of, how are you putting that to use for you to better your circumstance and condition in the world? If you are not doing that, all you're doing is regurgitating stuff that has happened to you, and you're regurgitating this over and over and over again. African people have been talking about the very same identical problem for thousands of years. Slavery is not new to the African world. Europeans, Arabs, Jews, and now you got the Chinese on our case. And the Chinese were attracted to us, to preying upon us, because they saw how successful these other predators have been. That's why they came. They say, well, what the heck? You let Europeans enslave you globally. You let Arabs enslave you all up in North Africa. Plus, you let Arabs take 1/3 of your continent. They took 1/3 of your house. And to this day, you and I have done nothing to take it back. Zero, zilch. Enemies look at that. Other nations look at that. Nations who ordinarily would do nothing to you. But if they see that everybody is having their way with you, then they become enthused. They become they become pushed to take advantage of you, because they see how other people are profiting from your ignorance, your foolishness, and your cowardice. They see that. And that is what they see in the African world. We can lie to ourselves all we want, but the bottom line is our foolishness and cowardice is well known throughout the entire world. Everybody sees it. Okay, we are the ones who got these blinders on. We got the blinders on, and then what we try to do is cover for our cowardice and foolishness that start by talking stuff like, well, you know, they did this to us, they did that to us, they did this to us, and see, that's the reason why we in the condition. Nope, that does not gel with history.
30 seconds, Papa.
History. It doesn't gel with that. And see, these are the things that we have to come to grips with as a nation of people. And we have to do it globally. I always tell our people, when you hear me speak, I'm speaking global. I'm not just talking about Black folks here in America, because Black folks here in America is not going to be able to do anything with Europeans who are operating globally.
Facts. On that note, Baba, you know, I know this is every bit of what we think it was going to be when we was putting it together, right, Reya'Sekhmet? Okay, all right. And we're going to come back to that question, Baba. But I came across a statement some time ago, and I'm talking years ago, that never left me. And I believe it was from Baba Mwamba Mubarudi. And he said, most of us have been trained to be comfortable captives. To me, that means we've been conditioned ritually, socially, and spiritually to love the very shackles that that were taken off of our minds, our hands, our feet. That was taken off our hands and our feet and put on our minds. Basically, everything that all you Babas have opened up with so graciously in the opening question. And that's not just tolerate those change, but it almost seems like they love those change. And in most cases, unconditional love. And we see this in our everyday lives. You know, when we walk outside, we turn on that TV, and mostly we hear it on the radio. And our people are wearing these chains, these shackles, you know, to the point that they're wearing it like if it's opportunity, you know, and we all see it on social media heavy. To me, this is captivity disguised as freedom. And again, most of us have been taught to defend the systems that distort us, but most of us come on late. And to protect the very lies that keep us disoriented. And in doing so, we forget that our liberation was never meant to be comfortable. So I say all of that to say, to ask, and I'm just going to open this one up to the panel. So if anybody want to answer this, or if the spirit moves you, come on with it, speak on it. But my question is, here in the back half of 2025 and beyond. So, you know, we're thinking present and future, to kind of play on words with Baba Olatunji and Baba Mkuu. But what part of our thinking still belongs to the oppressor, and what ideas, habits, reflexes are still colonized, still programmed to serve someone else's vision instead of our own? And I'm gonna open up the floor and let's build on that question.
Okay. Well, where do we start? I say pretty much for it collectively, most of us, it permeates all areas of people activity. Not only collectively, but also individually in the vast majority of us. As the Bible said earlier, our collective and individual ignorance and our foolishness, our immaturity contributes greatly to this. Our inability to have any degree of honesty and integrity to assess where we are, individually and collectively, so that we can begin the process of moving towards sovereignty. What Brother Shakari said relative to that is, a big impediment. Now, that's just with us. Now, we still got, see, because we have, as people, the euphemism, we have the enemy within and we have the enemy without. So we got the internal enemy, which is all those things I just mentioned. And then we had the enemy without, who is working 24/7 to keep us where we are by virtue of making ignorance fun, making our foolishness fun, and keeping us preoccupied with nothingness. And those of us that they allow to rise up to prominence, in particular economically, they're still controlled. They're controlled assets used primarily to make us feel like we can make it too, which is a fallacy of this system in the global system of racism, white supremacy, white terrorism. And so our inability to come to grips with all of that is a main reason that yeah, we're still very much under their thumb. Although many of us think that we're free as we're walking around. You say, I'm free, I can do what I want. Yeah, okay. Go out there and do something that one of those race soldiers feel you shouldn't be doing. And see them, he knock you upside your damn head. So for me, we got to start with an honest assessment, as you said earlier, Shakari, an honest assessment of history. Because we got to start at the beginning and come all the way forward so we can see how we got to where we are. And then we can begin the process of removing all of the stumbling blocks that will allow us to come back to where we need to be. Dr. Clark had a beautiful saying. He said, history is like a clock. Whatever happened 5,000 years ago determined what happened 500 years ago, determined what happened 5 years ago, determined what happened 5 minutes ago. And that those same elements will determine what happens 5 minutes from now, 5 years from now, 5,000 years from now. All history is like a clock. And so we need to look at the clock so we can see what time it is. But we can't do that until we go back and honestly assess our own. We got to assess like you said earlier, Shakari, about the feel good with history. We got to look at all of the failures, because it's in the failures that we will develop the plan so not to fail again. That was one of the beautiful things that I learned from, amongst many, from Dr. Chancellor Williams' book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, because he pointed out the failures, the different things that had we done what we were supposed to do, perhaps we would not be where we are right now. So we got, and the thing is that many of us still have not looked at those failures accurately or correctly or honestly, and accepted them for that, and then begin the process of development.
Ashe. I think that was a very poignant example from Brother Mwamba. The way I would approach this question would be, where are we vulnerable in that aspect? And I think that let's look at our cultural situation right now. We're very vulnerable in wanting to pursue those mundane, very basic human, I won't say needs, but those wants. We want, as black people, as Africans, we want to be rich. We want to have a lot of sex. We want to be free to run around, do everything we want. We want to be irresponsible. We want to believe any religious belief that we choose to believe. But I will just concentrate on the one where the spiritual part is concerned with us, and that would be our religious beliefs. We seem to be very vulnerable when it comes to that. This matters of spiritual, awareness and consciousness. We seem to be very, 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 very vulnerable to that. We see that there may be just a remnant of I would say a collective apostasy. Anybody who doesn't know what apostasy is, that is people or a person individually, collectively, who will leave the influence of their religion. That's what the word apostasy means. So I'm looking at our revolution, and one of the revolutions that we want, the spiritual revolution that I would like to see, will be a collective apostasy away from these alien religious, beliefs that we all seem to be engaging in: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, you name it, Buddhism, all these other things that we want to hold on to, like it's some kind of African right. And again, we go back to the generational thing I talked about earlier. It's this pummeling that we continue to get. And Brother Shakari is absolutely correct. It goes all the way back to ancient Canada. But the pummeling cannot be ignored. Just cannot be ignored. How it has been beat in us. So where I see these little pockets of resistance, where we're coming away from these alien philosophies and disciplines and looking at our African morality again, our African spiritual base again, the so-called principle of Ma'at that we want everybody to engage in, is where we need to concentrate on. So yes, there's a lot of areas that we need to look at. Why are we vulnerable? Why are we susceptible to being influenced the way that we are? If we start and stick with this very, very, very important aspect of our spirituality, get away from alien religious technology, I think this is where we need to concentrate on. So I'll just leave it there for right now.
Well, we can't let you leave it right there, Baba. I got a question for you. If you could just expound on the word apostasy for the family that may missed it the first time. Could you kind of go a little deeper for the grassroots family, for the children? Because that's one I'm gonna have to go to the dictionary on. So,
well, it's basically just it's just the abandonment of one's religious values, the programmed religious values that we seem to have. We seem to think that they're ours. We think we have this birthright that we come out of going to church, and my mom went to church, my grandma went to church, my father was a deacon, my mom was a minister, whatever. All these different things we think is something natural, and then let me just personalize it. When I say that your children are going to know whether you told them the truth or not, because sooner or later somebody, our children do grow up, and they do realize, well, why is this Catholicism? Why is this Baptist belief? Why is all this stuff being passed down? Did nobody ever ask any questions? Mm-hmm. How come my parents didn't ask the question? Mm-hmm. Why did they just pass this on to me as blindly as they did? Mm-hmm. Why? So apostasy has to be part of this so-called revolution, part of this so-called cultural sovereign revolution in our brains, in our minds, in our consciousness. That's what the apostasy has to be. There was this thing. Now, apostasy is not an African word, so don't even look at it as that. It's a European word, obviously, but we can use it to our advantage because that's exactly what it means. There was some rebellions in history. You can look it up, and you can Google it and look it up. There was an era called the Great Apostasy, where everybody kind of ran away from Catholicism and the Christian belief. Different pockets. A lot of revolutions happened because of that, because of the Great Apostasy. So yes, apostasy is the active leaving and retreat from alien spiritual religious technology.
Ashe.
One of the things one of the things I would like to chime in on that would be, and I agree with what Baba Mwamba and Baba Mkuu said previously, but I would like to dovetail onto that when we talk about our circumstance and condition in the world, there's no way that the African world could be in the condition that we're in. I'm talking about the horrible global condition that we're in if we were not suffering from some major cultural problems. There has been major cultural destruction that has taken place here. We couldn't be in the condition that we're in if that were not the case, which means that virtually all of our social systems have been destroyed. Mm-hmm. We're talking political, economic, intellectual, spiritual, technological, military, militarily. We're talking across the board.
Yes.
All of these structures have been successfully either completely destroyed or fatally crippled.
Or
one or the other. Yeah. One or the other. Either they have been completely destroyed, meaning that we don't have them anymore, or they are so crippled that they are completely diseased and dysfunctional.
For sure.
So when we look at the African world today, it is definitely true that we have got to get a handle on repairing ourselves spiritually. No question about it. It's no question. Your spiritual system is what defines for you what's right and what's wrong. That's why people develop spiritual principles and stuff. On a social level, the comparable social component to spirituality is actually a people's laws. Okay? That is the social component to a people, because that's what's defining for you what's right or wrong for you to do socially within the society. So, but I'm saying all of these systems have been attacked and destroyed for the most part, and again, the ones that are left are so pitifully diseased, dysfunctional, and crippled that they're doing us little or no good in terms of us getting out of our circumstance and condition. And this, of course, raises the question, what are we African people going to do to rebuild all of the social systems that are in shambles now? And we've got to deal with this question holistically. It's no use in us talking about we're going to be able to deal with it one by one. It's no use in us talking about we're going to have to wait and see if they abuse us some more, and then we'll become how should I say, then we'll become motivated to really get on the case. Like the song back in the 60s, the last poet song, when the revolution come and all the rest of it. The revolution happened 6,000 years ago. What are you talking about? When the revolution come? You're in the middle of a revolution right now, and we're losing. We're losing horribly. What are you waiting on? The African world is dying now. We're not dying later on, maybe further down the road. We're dying now, right now.
Right now.
Yes.
Action needs to be taken right now.
Now, yes.
The information has to be studied. It has to be analyzed. You and I have got to separate the positives from the negatives. Yes, you heard me say that. We have a mountain of liberation information available to us, but a lot of that stuff has got to be divided up so that we know the positive from the negative, what's going to work and what ain't going to work. And see, with us, unfortunately, this is another problem that we have. All of these problems, incidentally, and I say this all of the time, our situation in the world is not hopeless. Period.
No, of course not.
It is not hopeless. You and I can solve these problems. But we're not going to solve the problems running away from the problem or putting the problem off until later on. I tell you what we're going to do. We got some strong young warriors, you know, young brothers and sisters. And see, they ain't going to have this stuff that we had. So what we going to do, we just going to pass it on to them and let them handle it. No, you not.
No.
What are you talking about? Have any of us actually taken time to look at our youth? Oh yeah, there are pockets just like among us. There are pockets of our youth who are shining the light, such as our young princess sitting among us right now. Okay, but she's far and few in between. African people have got to come to grips with the fact that we have got work to do, and we have got to raise all of us up to a level of consistent, effective resistance.
Yes.
We've got to do that work, and you can't wait. You can't wait for that. It's no waiting. I tell African people all of the time, and I tell this to my students who I speak. I teach at a independent Black school, Freedom Found Academy International, and I teach there a couple of days a week.
Doing great work there, brother.
Yeah, and I teach my class. I teach my class about nationhood development and maintenance. That is the name of the course, nationhood development and maintenance. This is the work that you and I have got to do. You have.
Where's the school located?
So,
where's the school located?
No, it's located in Chicago, here in the city of Chicago.
I just want to know. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to know. Okay.
Freedom Home Academy International. Great school.
Okay.
And what needs to be done, and of course I have a school, the African World Research Institute. It's located in Chicago as well. Okay. Been there for 30 years. Okay. But the reality is, we as a people have got to embrace those concepts and principles that are going to save us. What's happening? One of the big problems, and I was getting ready to elaborate on this, one of the big problems in the African world is the fact that when you start out to do this separating the positive from the negative that I'm talking about here, many times we'll run into a brick wall. Because when you start being critical of the ancestors, now you hear people saying stuff like, I don't want anybody to belittle Black people or to talk against our great leaders. You know, I don't allow anybody to put me down. What the hell are you talking about? We're talking about the problems that have developed in the African world because of misleadership.
Thank you.
Because of miseducation.
Thank you.
You cannot tell me that the entire African world is in the condition that it is in today, and there has been no misleadership among us and no miseducation among us. You cannot tell me that all of the misleadership and miseducation that has led to our destruction was stuff that was imposed on us by our enemies. You're not going to tell me that garbage, because that's not true. That is not true. The principal reason why nations fall is because of those two things, misleadership and miseducation.
Yep.
Somebody has been leading us in the wrong directions, and somebody has been giving us the wrong instructions. And for the most part, if you take a serious look back into our history, you will find that we almost invariably follow the instructions of those leaders and scholars that we embraced as being our leaders and scholars, most of whom turned out to be the wrong ones.
That's it. I'd like to piggyback off of that, off of something he said. With what you were saying, it was so beautifully stated. And what I would say is that we can start with clarity in terms of the definitions that we use.
Absolutely.
So I remember something that Dr. Marimba Ani always said, that your culture is your immune system.
Mhm.
And so what I would say is that in terms of what you were saying, Baba Shakari, is that we need to talk about being clear about what culture is.
Absolutely.
Because if we're not clear about what culture is, then we're just as I always say, if you do not know culture, what it is and how it works, everything else you think you understand about culture will only confuse you. So we got to be clear about what culture is.
Mhm.
So that means, and what I always start with, culture is a set of ideas, concepts, beliefs, practices, etc., that a group of people come together and agree to adhere to, and that they're based usually along racial and ethnic lines, and they include all areas of people activity. They permeate and manifest themselves in all areas of people activity. And if we never understand that, we can't get to understanding what culture is. And then we go to do what you talked about, which is to look at the good and the bad, extract the good of what we did that worked, and throw what didn't work into the trash can of history.
Yes.
That's how we will get to the point of beginning the process of elevating ourselves. Because within that culture is that same thing you talked about, Shakari, which is understanding right and wrong, correct and incorrect. Because we lost that moral, what I call our moral compass.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have a moral compass of right and wrong. So we got to look for where that right and wrong is. And as you said, Mkuu, Ma'at, the principles of Ma'at are the perfect segue to start. Truth, justice, righteousness, balance, reciprocity, harmony, and order. And then we go to the 42 confessions of that and look at that and extract from that the best of that and begin the process of implementing it and living it and manifesting it. And then we can start the process, because then once we're culturally correct, nobody can come to us and push ideas that we know are not ours.
Mhm.
You see, and when we look at those, like for instance, those three major religions, which is by and large have heavily influenced Black people: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And when you talk to Black people, the first thing they'll try to tell you is that those are ours. And see, because they got this from, they didn't get none of those religions from Africa, none of them. They might have got some concepts that went into some of them, but they ain't get none of those religions came out of Africa.
That's
Not a
right.
single one of them.
That's
And
right.
so, and what they did when the word bringers came in, they brought that and tried to make it seem like it was ours. It is not. I always liken it to this. This is the analogy I use. If you came to my house and I said, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" and you said, "Yeah, I want black," and I come back and I give you coffee and it's got nutmeg and cinnamon and cream and all this, and then you're sitting there, you're saying, "Damn, how do I get all this stuff out of here so I can get back to the black coffee?" You see what I'm saying? So we have to use what's ours.
That's right.
That's how you should. When I tell people what it means to be African-centered, if it don't come from us, it's not African-centered. It's something else.
Right.
And so you hear people that will say, "Well, this is African-centered or this is Afrocentric." I don't use the term Afrocentric nor Afrocentricity, because I look at the person who first proposed it and what he said about it, and then I analyze it. And what he said about it is not African-centered at all. It's Afrocentric, because that's what he says it is. So that's what he do. Cool. But that ain't African-centeredness. So we got to be clear about what it means to be African-centered, because in the final answer, that's what's going to tell us what it means to be African, what it means to be Black. And so, that's what I would say in relative to piggybacking off of what you said, Shakari, and you too, Mkuu, in terms of where we got to start. We got to be clear about our history, and we can't we can't make excuses for it any longer.
No, that's right.
They are definitely trying to annihilate us from the planet. I got the plans of some of the plans that they've been working on for years. I got them right in my library, so I know the plan.
I say. So let's check in with our young host and see do a knowledge check. You have any questions?
Yeah, I do actually. So, Bob, for my clarity, is it fear or the forgetting who we are
as a people?
Oh, well, I would like to chime in on that.
Come on, take it away, my brother. Take it away. Take it away.
I think there's no question that is fear. I think there's no question that is fear. Now, there may be some elements of unawareness and all of the other variables that come into play, but overwhelmingly, I think it's no question that the fear factor is playing a major role in us not moving forward as a nation of people with our freedom and independence. I think there's no question about that. Enemy fear reigns supreme throughout the African world because we know and have seen firsthand what the enemies that we have can and will do to us. So we can't deny any of that. They can do all of this stuff because they've shown us, they have proven that they are vicious, ruthless, cunning, and they are grandmasters of violence. They've shown us that in no uncertain terms. You know, a lot of us, we like to talk about white folks are the masters of deception. Well, that's true, but they are grandmasters of violence.
Of violence, yes, sir.
Grandmasters.
Yes,
so
they are.
You take how good they are at lying, and then you multiply that by 1,000 when you talk about how good they are at killing and destroying.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely.
So there's no question who we're up against. And all of us know it, even though many of us don't want to say it. And many of us try to have this false bravado, like, oh man, I ain't scared of nothing. You get the heck out of here. You are scared. And the proof is in the pudding. What other people is going to put up with what we've put up with unless they wasn't scared?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yep.
It's just like both of the brothers and myself. I'm chiming in with that. We can, you and I cannot lie about the things that's right in front of our face. All of us see the same thing. Okay. We want to skip over it and act like, oh, well, it's this, it's that. No, I'm telling you what it is. The bottom line is African people are still enslaved. And African people are victims of a genocidal process that's in motion and it's working. See, many of us, when we talk about things like genocide, the first thing that comes to our mind is concentration camps, railroad boxcars, gas chambers, and we think of stuff like that. Modern day genocide don't operate like that. So you can forget about waiting for them to enact the McCarran Act, okay, the King Alfred Plan, all the rest of that. See, once that happened, then we really know the war is on and we got to quit fooling around. We got to get busy. No. That ain't the way. Absolutely. Bottom line is we late now. Right? At this point, we playing catch up. Because the bottom line, we are directly behind the 8 ball. And the white ball is coming at us even as I speak.
Yes,
so
sir.
The thing is, genocide works through a myriad of different methods of killing. Okay? Those methods are called silent warfare. Drugs, alcohol, birth control, abortions, homosexuality. Did I say homosexuality? Homosexuality.
Say it one more time.
homosexuality, male and
Mhm.
female,
Mhm.
because no nation can produce children if they are not appropriately mating with each other.
Yes.
And a man and a man ain't gonna produce nothing. A woman and a woman ain't gonna produce nothing.
Mhm.
Our enemies
Mhm.
lit into us with homosexuality like a train, I'm telling you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And at the time, I saw it because I've been conscious since 1965, so I ain't no new kid on the block.
Mhm.
I saw it coming, and I was
Mhm.
saying to myself at the time, okay, because they started this homosexual thing in earnest back in the 70s. Back in the early 70s is when they really started in earnest. And I
1 minute,
said
Baba.
to
1 minute.
myself, yeah, I said to myself, there's no way they're going to be able to convert African people into being homosexuals like them, you know, like they did in Greece, like they did in Rome and all, because we ain't that type of people. As it turned out, I was dead wrong. Because of people who are disconnected from their culture can be easily made to flip-flop.
Absolutely.
Even on their own sexual orientation.
Absolutely.
White folks proved it. They proved it with us. And we were almost 100% heterosexual in our sexual orientation back in the 70s. Look at us today. Homosexuality is taking off in the African world. Got our babies out there talking about that's the way they want to be. We're losing this battle, and we got work to do to get back on proper footing. Work to do.
Yes.
On that note,
that's why I wrote the book. That's why I wrote the book that I wrote.
And we're going to get into the book.
I got your book. I got it. I got it.
Okay,
Powerful book.
From this point forward, the questions Barbara, Sarah, and I will ask will be direct to each of you individually, so that we can go deeper into your personal walk, your wisdom, and your work. But if something speaks to your spirit, or if you feel called to respond alongside to the person we're asking, please feel free to build. This is the safe case, and your voices are always welcome.
Yeah. And so on that note, Baba Shakari, in your book, Facing the Truth Straight with No Chaser, in section January 2020, page 90, I'm being specific. Absolutely. Why don't you put that book up for Baba? There it is. Okay. Go ahead, put it down. Where you talk about compromise and waiting, right? And we as a family appreciate the way you made certain words stand out so that it sinks in within the mind for supreme consciousness. So first, will you talk about why you chose to make bold those key words and other words throughout the book? And my main question is, what have we lost spiritually, culturally, and generationally? And we've touched on this already, but I want you to expound on it by compromising with oppression and waiting for change instead of building it. You know, so basically, where I'm going with this is, what does the path forward look like in addition to that? You know, so that we don't keep repeating the same
I'll be right back.
old paradigm. And lastly, Baba, do you believe that our people are indeed ready to do what must be done?
Well, in terms of the book and the highlighted portions of the book, those are portions in the book that I perceived as being critical for the reader to be able to fully appreciate what is being said.
That's why we're bringing it up, Baba, because those words jumped out at us. And it makes you take those words, and pardon me, it makes you take those words and dive deeper into those words so that you do get a better understanding of what you have written in your passages. So do I to you for that. But please continue.
So that was the thought behind that, because African people, we need to get a clear understanding of what we are up against. It's no question about it. When I write books, I write along the lines of what Dr. Amos Wilson said. He said back in the 90s, he said African people have got to start getting into writing prescriptive books, not just descriptive, describing stuff. No, that's not good enough. We have got to start prescribing to our people the things that we must do to get out of our circumstance and condition in the world. Prescription. We need prescriptions for the diseases that are eating us alive. We need prescriptions. We need someone to give us clear instructions on what we must do. So when I write these books, and even with my latest book, which is this book right here.
Yeah, there it is.
Jewels of Thought and Action for African World Resurrection and Reconstruction. Here it is right here. This is the type of writing that African people need. We need some clear-cut instructions. This is what you do for this. This is what you do for that. This is what you do for this. This is the type of writing. African people need to understand, in no uncertain terms, what must we know and do to rid ourselves of the disease of tribalism? What must we, African people, know and do to rid ourselves of the disease of mysticism? What must African people know and do to rid ourselves of the disease of primitivism? And you go on down the line. This book right here, I detail all of that in detail. This book is 594 pages. This ain't no little bitty book. And it ain't no short read where you could just read it and, okay, I got it. Yeah, okay, yeah. No. See, I have said this, and I'll say this before, and this dovetails into the last part of your question. We have a whole bunch of books talking about when we ruled, you know, when Black people were in a position of power in the world. Okay. Now, that's good stuff. It's good for us to know that at one point in our history, we were rulers over ourselves. It's no question about that. That's a good thing. So don't get me wrong when you hear the second part of what I have to say about this issue of when we ruled. Okay? I'm laying it out there. When we ruled is a good thing. We do need to know that we were rulers at one time. We have not always been slaves to other people. We have not always been under other people's domination and control. We have not always been dependent on other people to supply us with anything. We were the producers. We were independent producers of everything that we used in life. We were skilled fighters in all areas of modern combat and warfare at the time. At the time, we were the ones that were the military power in the world. You and I, African people. Now, that having been said, it's good that we know that. However, it's not good enough for us to write these big old thick books, 6 inches thick, and you not mention anything about the mistakes that we made and the things that we have to correct.
Yes.
We should all feel embarrassed. I know I do. We should all feel embarrassed that we were at the top of our game. We were in our own civilization. We had power second to none. And we let a bunch of cave dwellers come in, rip us off, and reduce us to sick and pathetic servants and imitators of them. We should be embarrassed by that. I know I am. I admit it openly. I'm totally embarrassed because it should never have happened. It should never have happened. No nation of people should allow leaders and scholars to come among them talking about they have allegiance to anybody other than us. And you our leader. and scholar.
Mm.
Oh no, your allegiance has got to be to us. Your allegiance to us has got to be front and center. Don't be telling me nothing about well, my allegiance to Amun-Ra is greater than my people. Well, then you don't need to be a leader over me. Because, see, I need you to put me first.
Yes.
I need you to, you need to put the people first.
Yes.
They come before you, your family, your God, all the rest of that. If you are going to be a leader of a people, you must put the people first, because that means we have put our faith in you, that you're going to be looking out for our best interests, not what you went home one night and got on your knees and prayed to God, and somehow God told you that this is right here is what you should do, and then now you decide you're going to lead the whole African world in this direction of some unknown, unseen being that you call God, and now you're going to have us doing that. You're not basing it on an analysis of the objective conditions that exist in the world as to what we should be doing as a people. This is what a leader is supposed to do. This is what scholars are supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to be thinking up. They're not supposed to give a hoot about what other nations are doing, what other leaders are doing, what other scholars are doing. I could give a less than a crap about what they're doing. They're doing the things apparently that they see or feel is in their collective best interest, which is what they're supposed to do.
1 minute.
That is what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to look out for the collective best interests of their people. You don't put no God first. You don't put yourself first, your family first, or nobody else first. And you're supposed to be our leader. That is your charge. Once you become the leader, that's your charge. It's just like parents in a home. Parents in a home, it is their responsibility to look out for the best interests of the family as a whole. They're not supposed to be up there looking out for themselves just as Baba, or looking out for herself just as Mama. No, you got 8 kids at home. You got to look out for the whole family. You got to look out for all of those kids. And this is what we have to do as a people, and have to understand when we talk about leadership and scholarship.
Yes.
Ashe.
So let's continue.
Ooh, wait a second. Let that sit for just a few seconds for the family, right?
Yeah.
Let that sit for a few seconds, because what Baba just put down need to have some space in between there, because you said some powerful things, Baba, and I know for the sake of time I got to keep it moving, but I wrote it down. I'm going to come back to you just so that we can get some breath work in there. Facts.
So let's continue. Baba Olatunji, in chapter 10 of your 128-page book, An African-Centered Response to the LGBTQIA, you wrote about cultural confusion being used as a weapon. You made it clear that the radical LGBTQIA+ organizations and those who push that agenda were our people, especially the children, to be as sexually and gender confused as possible. You said they try to turn transgender fluid and non-binary into scientific facts without any real advice, and the armies were jacked. And let me be clear, family. Anyone who harms a child sexually, psychologically, or spiritually is worthy of the strongest punishment, up to death, because we, the children, are sacred. So my question is, how do adults and upstanders protect us, the children's minds, from this kind and confusion, while still teaching us to be compassionate and strong at the same time?
I sound like a little Shakari over here. Come on with it, Baba. You know what? We're gonna start with Baba Olatunji. This is your show. But if the other Babas, Baba Mkuu, Baba Batu, if you feel compelled or moved any kind of way, expound on it.
Okay, I would say we start with removing our own, as adults, our own collective ignorance of this issue. This is why I wrote the book, because I saw so much ignorance being spewed by those who claim to know so much. One of the things that I saw that was disappointing was hearing from people who were claiming they were conscious, and they would say, we got bigger fish to fry than this issue. And I said, you obviously don't know how big this issue is, or
That's
how
right.
they're perpetrating it.
That's right.
You don't understand that they are in, since okay, we know we should have African-centered schools, but by and large, we don't have them. So that means most of our children are going to public schools.
Mhm.
They are in public schools continuously using brainwashing, propaganda, and social engineering to socially engineer our children into believing that these behaviors, LGBTQIA plus, are positive, are what we should be doing, and that we should hang out with these people and even participate in those types of behaviors. So we have to start with understanding that all of those behaviors are un-African.
That's right.
They are Euro-Asiatic in nature, and that what they want to do is, we've already been to a large extent, for use of a better word, un-Africanized. They want to complete that task by getting us to participate in these behaviors because, as Batu said, it will keep us from reproducing, because our saviors are going to come from what we produce, what we reproduce, and that is the children. So we need to protect the children by looking out for sexual predators, because sad to say, but we have sexual predators in our community who look just like us. And they come from a variety of places, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But at this point, talking about why it is not as important as what we're going to do about it.
That's right.
So we know. I will say this point, that some of these sexual predators come out of prisons. So we got a lot of sexual rape in prisons. So a lot of these is rape and or just sexual Europeanized sexual degradation in terms of participation in homosexuality in the prisons. They have a saying in the prisons. They say, "I'm gay for the state." So, so they're gay while they're in prison, then they come back out and say that they're straight. Now they've been participating in all of this foolishness, all this debauchery and stuff, and then they bring it out. So we got to be clear and protect the children, because a lot of our children are either and see with this brainwashing that they're doing, it's easily used to set up the children to accept being sexually abused. See, so that the abuser, of course, he's gonna do what he does, because he's that's what they do. So he's gonna sexually abuse a child, because they do what they call grooming first. They groom them, they take them along a certain place, and what they do is they go to homes or to children that they know that there's nobody there to protect them, or what I would call they're asleep at the wheel. And so this is how they come after the children. So we got to do a better job of recognizing the sexual predators in our midst, and we had to get rid of it. And as the young sister said so well, for me, you touch a child, you are now food for the worms.
That's it.
Period. There's no oh, how could you be so? How could I be so what? Be so what? Then tell me that. How could I be so what when we're talking about something that could possibly destroy this child's, not only their physical, but their mind to such a degree that they're never the same. That they're never the same. And we need sane, rational children to grow up to be sane, rational adults. That's what's going to continue to produce sane, rational children who will again grow up to be sane and rational adults, and the circle will continue. And as long as we have this interruption with that through sexual predators, and sexual abuse of our children, we can't get anywhere. So we got to protect the children from this insanity. So we look at TV, movies, music, education. We need to look at all of these things and look and be able to recognize where they're putting this stuff at. And we need to restrict our children from having access to that as much as we possibly can. Or at the very least, if we're going to allow it, we need to be where they are so we can show them what they're actually being exposed to that they may not recognize. Because remember, they don't know right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We do, or at least we're supposed to. And it's our job to teach them what is correct and incorrect behavior, what is right and wrong. So the best way to do that is to study our culture and our history and study our enemies and see what they're doing. Again, that's why I wrote the book, An African-Centered Response to the LGBTQIA Organizations, Plus, and their agenda, the conversation no one wants to have.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to have the conversation. Part of the problem is we're afraid to have the conversation. We're afraid to condemn the behaviors by virtue of saying, look, this behavior is wrong. Period. Regardless of who it is, whether it's Uncle Jojo or Cousin Ray Ray or Cousin Cantrice. If they're participating in that behavior, we have to tell them that behavior is incorrect. You can't come around here with that. And if that's what you want to do, you stay over there and go get some help for that. And then perhaps after you get some help for that, we will allow you to come back and be amongst the family. But they cannot be allowed to be around because remember, our children look at examples of adults.
Mm-hmm.
Good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Good or bad. And so when our children see them as adults doing this, they are going to try to come amongst our children to try to convince them that what they're doing is correct behavior. So we have to minimize our children's exposure to this kind of behavior and the people who participate in it. That's where we start.
Facts. And Baba Mkuu, you want to build on that?
No, not really.
If not, we can pass it on. We can pass the time if we have.
Hey, look, man, how can you add? How can you really add to that? I mean, everything that needed to be said was said right there, brother Shakari and brother Mwamba. Everything is right there. Everything.
Okay, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to cut in if you wanted to.
Nah,
but,
don't need to.
This is helping me see things even clearer. What I'm learning today is this confusion isn't just random, it's designed.
Mm-mm.
And
Yes.
I've come to know it's pushed through cartoons, classrooms, and hashtags.
That's facts.
Trying
Yes.
to question what's real and forget what's sacred.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. But as we close out of this segment, and coming off that last question, it's clear that society has an agenda, a coordinated effort to distort African minds. And I see how we have found ourselves in position of being a conquerable people, whether it's through government policies, media programming, radicalized LGBTQ organizations, or from our own doing, as Baba Batu Shakari has so eloquently stated. The goal seems to be the same, and that is confusion. Confusion about our identity, about our family, about our truth. And when confusion becomes normalized, leadership becomes compromised, which brings me to the chapter 9 in your book, Art of Leadership. Baba Mkuu, you titled this chapter Corrupted Leadership. So I want to say that you did make it plain for us, Reya'Sekhmet, myself, my family, by saying leadership that lacks cultural integrity, ancestral accountability, and spiritual clarity becomes a weapon against our own people. And how titles can be used to seduce, mislead, and poison. My question is, when we say corrupted leadership, what exactly do we mean? And what does it look, sound like, and feel like when leadership has been hijacked by the same systems that seek to continue to confuse and control African minds? And how do we even recognize it today before it infects the next generation? Floor is yours, Baba.
Corrupted leadership in essence, when in the 21st for the 21st century, we can go back generations and eons and decades and centuries, millenniums. We can do a lot of we can look at different eras of our existence and come up with different examples of corrupted leadership. But the bottom, I think in the beginning of our global pursuits, when we realized that we had a global situation, global humanity, intercontinental, connections and relationships and communications, corrupted leadership meant domination. It meant control back then, and a lot of it was whether we really want to grasp this reality or not. The European, the Urugu, wanted to have a global situation for their seeds, for their progeny. They wanted to create a white European Urugu reality for the entire globe, so that their children can reap the benefits of their conquests. That's what it was. They knew that. So we talk about greed. We're talking about control. We're talking about grabbing everything that you can, and the only way that they could do that was on a technological level, and that meant that being superior militarily, with weapons, with firepower, and with what they call the superiority of the seas. Okay, so fast forward that same mindset of that kind of leadership to now. The global conquest is now a reality. Their cultural system is in place. Their global marketplace is in existence. We had to go by their rules now. We had to live in their paradigm now. So everything revolves around us becoming comfortable in this reality, in this civilization, in this European capitalistic paradigm. So it all comes down to, how do we get the bag? How do we get rich? How do we get our little piece of the pie? How do we grab the part of this global marketplace that they have basically have a stranglehold on? We're never going to grasp it, but we get a piece of it. So it all comes down to the capitalistic paradigm. And we're talking about the capitalistic. I talked about this before in our last broadcast, was the capitalistic hypnosis.
Yes.
Okay. And the capitalistic hypnosis is what we are suffering from it now as a people. So, there's no other pursuit of anything higher, any kind of a higher ordeal, ideal with most, not all, but most African people, of how can we get more comfortable in this paradigm, in this European capitalistic paradigm.
Yes, sir.
Now,
yes, sir.
So the leadership, obviously, when you go across the sphere of influence of African people in this European capitalist society, obviously the leadership is going to be involved and have that same kind of mindset. Okay, so where is the corrupt? So now we have the corrupted leadership, corrupted European leadership, corrupted African leadership, corrupted leadership, period. That's only 99% of what we're going to get that's going to be generated out of this society. The way it's manufactured now is going to be corrupted.
Yes.
That's it. That's the bottom line. So we have now a small percentage of people, Africans, stepping up to the plate. You got four people right here with me who I can safely say we're leaders, and I know we're not corrupted. But it took a whole lot of work for us to get here.
Yes.
Okay,
Facts.
it took a lot of study for me and Batu and Olatunji and Erasure and even Rhea to get to where we're at right now.
Yes.
Okay,
It
so
ain't easy.
very few rise above the madness. We rise above the craziness that we're addicted to on a daily basis. Okay, so what I basically say in the book is just that. It's going to have to take a lot of work for us to be uncorrupted. And the only way you can get there is by doing the work. Now, let me say this. Let me just say this. Leaderships tell the truth. Leaders tell the truth at all times. And just like Brother Batu said, your people have to be the number one priority if you are going to be a leader, especially an African leader. Okay? You have to have a love for your people.
Yes, sir.
Above and beyond what we consider these so-called mundane human pursuits of comfortability, trying to get comfort in this world. Okay, but I would say this: Africans, you are cowards. You are cowards. You know why? Because you want to go to heaven.
Yep.
You want virgins when you leave this sphere of influence because you're a Muslim. Okay? That's you want. You want to be, everybody's equal. You know what I mean? And if I die and I try to show myself as being a person who's being fair and non-judgmental, and I don't care what the white man did to us. I don't care what the Arab did to us. You know what I mean? I'm going to go to heaven because I'm pure of heart. No, you're not. You're a fucking coward.
That's right.
Yep.
Teach.
That's what leaders say. You're a coward.
Teach.
Okay, because you want to go to heaven. Okay, now some people say that ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, had some type of a form of heaven. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. What they had was either you go into the Neteru, which was nature, and they weighed your heart, put it on the scale of Ma'at, okay, or you got fed to that entity that was the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the rear of a hippopotamus. Okay, so you just got basically, they didn't say you went to hell. They basically said you got recycled. And you went back into the ether. And then you come back, you get another chance of doing so that's where the Buddha stuff comes from. Okay, so when you look at nature and look at the hippopotamus, what do they do when they expel waste? Their tail flips it around all over the marsh, and the marsh gets re-infused with nutrients of what they ate. So that's basically all ancient Kemet is saying. Either you get reincarnated to a form of a higher consciousness, you become an ancestor, and the ancestor left their mark on a spiritual level where they influence in a positive way the coming generations because their memory has been felt in such a way that they now have a place in history. As people who are instrumental in the history of African people. So that's all ancient Kemet was doing. That's all ancient Kemet was saying. They wasn't saying nothing about no heaven and hell stuff. And if you believe in heaven, we have no idea what is there behind after we die. Nobody, even the ancient Kemetians didn't know that.
Right.
They didn't know what was going on. Nobody
knows what's behind door number one.
Exactly. Nobody ever went there and came back and told you what was going on.
Exactly. You know what I always say, Mkuu? I always say, if you know somebody came back, can you give me their phone number because I need to talk to them.
and one thing we know, that we know as Africans, especially a leader who's trained themselves to become the type of leader that they should be, a true African leader, is become an ancestor.
Yes.
worthy of being called an ancestor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And leaving the mark and leaving the legacy for their progeny and for their seeds.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So corrupted leadership is simply being a victim of this so-called, in this era, in this time frame, a victim of European capitalistic society. That's all. That's what corrupted leadership is.
Awesome.
Leadership, true African leadership, are the ones who's rising above that. It's not a lot of us, but we're here. But we also going to tell the truth. Stop being a damn coward.
Facts. And on that note, we'll close out that segment.
Okay, so let's keep building. Segment 2, African-Centered consciousness is next.
Yeah, so family, as Reya'Sekhmet has said, consciousness isn't just about knowing facts, it's knowing who you serve. And Baba Shakari, I've heard you say, and I paraphrase, that is, if your consciousness doesn't lead to action, it's just decoration. I want you to break down, what does African-centered consciousness really look like from your perspective? And how do we know when we're achieving it and when we are achieving supreme consciousness to the point where we break free of that hypnosis, as Baba Mkuu had talked about earlier, and hold our leaders and scholars accountable, especially when we have leaders that claim one thing, but it doesn't represent the people. And you spoke to that briefly, but I want you to expound on that. So in your opinion, how do we recognize these people and kick their ass out of any position of leadership in our society? Your words, Baba.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an easy one. You pay attention, close attention to what they say. You pay attention, close attention to what they say. That's number one. And number two, you pay even closer attention to what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So see, that's how you tell that. You do a comparison once you pay a close attention to what they say, and then you also take the time to pay even closer attention to what they do, and then you match them up. Match them up. Is what they saying compatible with what they doing? That's a easy peasy right there. You look at, you listen to what they say, and then you look at what they do, and then the truth is gonna come out in the wash right there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
you
sir.
Also, and connecting it to our people, you also look at what they're saying and what they're doing, and you ask yourself the question, is this going to contribute substantively to our freedom and independence? Okay? Not just a bunch of blah, 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 a bunch of talk. See, one of the things that has happened to African people, especially in terms of leaders and scholars, we have fallen in love with those leaders and scholars who have developed the ability to tell us what they know we want to hear. We have an affinity. We are attracted to individuals like that. They tell us they know what we want to hear because they've studied us. You know, most of the leaders and scholars that's out there right now, they've taken the time to look at the stuff that they see African people believe in, what African people want. That's what they're looking at. Okay, it's just like a European salesman. European salesmen don't just go out there willy-nilly and just say any old thing. They size up their audience, so to speak. They size up the
Mhm.
audience. They find out what the audience wants to hear or wants to have. And then they make their product, they fashion their product, whatever that might be, in accordance with what they know their targeted audience wants to have or wants to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Simple.
Mhm.
Relative to
Yeah.
our
Yes,
liberation
sir.
struggle, and this is where the problem comes in at. See, liberation is not about you saying what people want to hear. In fact, most of the stuff that you talk about, if you are actually talking about liberation, is going to rub us the wrong way.
Yep.
I can tell you that without fear of contradiction. I've been out here over 50 years. I'm not no new kid on the block who just got started. I have seen this in action.
Yep.
I have seen this take place even among those who claim to be conscious and committed.
For sure.
Mhm.
This,
Mhm.
and this is really disheartening. All of
Mhm.
these years, you thought that this person right here was stopped down for it.
Yep.
And then here he come putting some post up on some social media platform talking about how Jesus is real. What the hell are you talking about?
Mhm.
Come on now. How Allah is the answer.
Come on.
Yep.
Man.
Listen, let's be clear. There is no extraterrestrial or whatever, divine, however you want to put it. There is no extraterrestrial or divine entity that's going to solve your and my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
That's one of the first things you and I have got to get crystal clear in our mind.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I mean crystal clear, I'm talking about crystal clear to a fault. That
Yes.
I know for a fact that ain't no God coming, no Allah, no Yahweh, no Amun-Ra, no dead man Jesus, no mothership from outer space somewhere,
Mhm.
no cycles of the universe. The universe is going to turn a certain way and a certain vibration is going to happen in the universe and everybody's consciousness is going to reach a higher vibration and all of us are just going to live together, get along, and we'll all live happily ever after. The world is full of dead bodies who believed in that garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Europeans went across the world, conquering the world and taking people's lives and land because their victims believed in that nonsense.
Right.
You and
Yes.
I cannot afford to fall into that trap because you and I have too much evidence to the contrary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So when you hear some leaders and scholars talking such nonsense, you know it's time to cut them off. They're not worthy of being your leader and scholar.
Nope.
And they're talking about Jesus is coming back, the mothership is coming, and all the rest of that. No, you're not worthy. No. We're going to stop you right there. I have said that African people have got to reach a point, and we have got to reach a point where those of us who are conscious and committed come together with each other. Those of us who feel that they have some type of contribution or program that African people need to lock into for us to become the free and independent that we most certainly must have at this point. It's not even just something that we should have, or it would be the best thing for us to have. We're way past that now. Mm-hmm. Liberation, I've said this over and over again. Liberation is a requirement for the African world at this point.
Yep.
We don't have the option of just simply figuring out ways and means to make it, quote unquote, make it in life. That's off the table. It ain't no, that's not, that's long gone. That's long gone. Me and you simply making it in life is not going to make it for you and I. Why?
Nope.
Because you and I are under genocidal attack. That's why.
Absolutely.
Somebody is coming for your and my head. And they ain't sitting up taking no prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
No.
They don't, we seem to not, it seems not to be registering with us that we're under a genocidal attack, that all of the cards are off the table now. All of that stuff that you thought that you think you need to do. I need to go to school, get myself an education, get myself a job, get me a nice house, get me a nice car, money in my pocket. I can go wherever I want to go around the world, and everything will be cool for me. Everything is not going to be cool for you because you left out one thing. You left out the fact that there's a headhunter on the set. There's a killer in the house, and he ain't taking no for an answer from you.
Yep.
So see, we sitting up here farting around thinking that we don't have to get serious. We don't have to unite. We don't have to organize. We don't have to get rid of those who's telling us all we have to do is beg for reparation crumbs because they did us wrong. You know, they did us wrong, and everybody know they did us wrong. Let me be clear. Let me be crystal clear. And I mean crystal clear. I am crystal clear that white folks did horrible things to us, some of it unspeakable. I'm crystal clear about that. Did you hear what I said? I
Yes,
said
sir.
crystal clear.
Yes, sir.
Crystal clear.
Yes, sir.
I'm also crystal clear, however, that enemies don't owe their victims a damn thing. Let me say that again. Enemies don't owe their victims a damn thing.
Say it one more time for the family.
Let me say it one more time. Enemies don't owe their victims a damn thing.
Nope. We got to take it.
It is the victims who owe it to themselves to do what's necessary to be done to recover whatever their enemies may have taken from them.
Yes.
Now, Baba, I'm gonna cut in respectfully. I'm gonna make an OG call, at least an OG call on this side of the camera. I want to give you 2 more minutes to talk about and expound on the killer in the house.
Oh boy. Oh, you hit you, buddy.
Hey, come on.
Hey, look, I'm like that too, man. I love that. I love that brother.
Are you sure?
I love that ancestor.
Yeah.
I love that ancestor,
We're
man.
gonna open up the floor for you.
I love that ancestor,
got you
man.
coming next.
I love that ancestor, man.
A killer in the house, Dr. Nkosi Mundari.
Oh my God.
This brother was a giant among giants. He was one of our greats. He was one of our greats. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. This brother put together that tape talking about the killer in the house. And he expounded on how Europeans are the killer in the house. And they are global killers. And they are killing, and they have killed us globally.
Yes, sir.
Globally. These are a people who have gone throughout the world, conquering other people, enslaving other people, and taking their lands all over the planet.
Yes.
All over the planet.
Yes, sir.
Right now, the African world is in the crosshairs of this killer in the house. Because the killer has decided, and Dr. Nkosi points this out, that the killer has decided now that they don't need the slaves that they have held under their domination and control for here in America over 550 years. I don't need you all no more. Why? Because technology and automation has made slavery an obsolete institution.
Yes.
It's not because you and I are no longer slaves. Oh, you get that out your brain. Any nation of people that's under the domination and control of another nation of people are slaves. Any nation of people who lives in a state of total dependence and vulnerability to the people who have them under dominance are slaves. That's a period. Put a period on the end of that. But see, slavery is not the biggest problem facing us. Oh, no, that ain't as horrible as slavery is. That's not the biggest problem facing us. The biggest problem is that your enslavement has become obsolete. I don't need you no more. And what does that mean for you?
Exactly.
What
Good
that
question.
means is I'm getting rid of you.
Mhm.
Oh, no, you can forget about it. I'm just going to let y'all go. Y'all can go on back to Africa. Wait a minute, hold it. You ain't going back to Africa, nothing. Because Africa is the golden prize that I've had my eyes on for thousands of years.
Mhm.
It's been my intent to take that continent from you. That ain't
Mhm.
nothing new.
Mhm.
That has always been my intent, to take that whole 12,700,000 square miles of land, prime real estate. It has always been my intention of taking that from you, lock, stock, and barrel.
1 minute, Baba.
So, with that having been said, the killer in the house simply reads out one message, and it's clear and plain for the whole entire African world to see. You and I must unite, organize, and do the serious work necessary to be done for us to liberate ourselves, not only from the killer in the house, who in Cozy primarily was talking about Europeans, but be clear, the killer in the house has attracted other killers to the house. So now you have other nations who have, if you will, they have joined the killer in doing what they have to do to take that continent from you and I, and to get rid of you and I in the process. We can continue to play if we want to, but I can say without fear of contradiction, and I have plenty of the greatest heavyweight thinkers that the African world has produced to co-sign what I'm getting ready to say now. The African world is under genocidal attack.
Yes.
We will be annihilated if we don't unite, organize, consolidate our ideas and resources globally, and then unite under one banner: total freedom and independence for African people throughout the world. And it's going to take Africans not only inside of Africa, but it's going to take Africans all over the planet to pull this off.
Ashe.
And it can, and this is my last word, it can be done. But it will not be done if we don't put in the work to make it happen. I ain't talking about hoping for it, wishing for it, dreaming for it, praying for it. I ain't talking none of that. Because you and I ain't gonna hope, wish, dream, pray none of that into existence. That calls for action. Unified, organized, liberation-centered action.
Ashe.
That's the only thing that will do it.
Ashe.
Ashe. Baba Mkuu, and you of Olatunji's book, Raising Awareness, Chapter 8, African Family History, you mentioned something powerful that most of us never had the oral history tradition from childhood. And I'm thankful for my Baba Rasa for bringing our family history forward for my cousins and I. So, Baba, I want to ask, what does it truly mean to know your family records? Not just names and dates, but the lessons, rituals, and fallout that shape us.
Good question.
Yeah, that was something I think that was in the revised version of the book too. That came in the second printing. I simply, well, we simply, the new revised edition, because in the first, that wasn't in the first edition at all. It's pretty simple, knowing your history, but I think on an individual basis, we need to understand where our family roots come from, where our family ties are originated from. It doesn't mean that it overrides or there's an overemphasis on the overall African identity. That is not meant to do that at all, but it's meant to supersede this Europe, if we're in the North American continent or South America, wherever you're at, where we come through generations and generations of enslavement or under somebody else's control, we want to go beyond the history, what most history books are. Most history books are about slavery and don't go no further back than that. In order for us to get beyond those, that type of thinking and indoctrination, we want to find out where our roots come from, what part of the continent where we come from. Now there is some information now that's out about the accuracy of DNA. And is DNA really as accurate as they claim it to be? Can it really get down to the exact tribe that we came from? I don't know. I don't know the answers to those questions. I do know that at some point there is some relevancy there. There is some value there for us to have a connection to the continent. And if we can get that in that way, it's not pseudoscience. That's one thing we can say. It's not pseudoscience. But if we can get a connection to the continent, it's going to be something that's going to be better for us psychologically. And then, of course, looking beyond the European history books, looking beyond slavery, we have a history that supersedes that. And we want to get to that realm. We want to get to that era. And in order for us to do that, we had to have a connection, a family and genetic connection to that history before slavery. And that's basically what that's all about.
Yeah. So just lightly to that point, you have these industries, and I don't want to call out nobody, no organization's name, because I don't want to promote nobody, but you have these platforms and organizations that offer these tests for DNA, and then it tells you all that you're talking about. But the one thing that I found out, because I've read on this, whether it's .com or, this or that or whatever, that they make it clear in the fine print that they only go back about 8 to 10 generations. And 8 to 10 generations for us, most of us can't get back past 1865, right? And so, but most of our family, as far as generation goes, our family started early, so we can get back about good 5 to 7 generations. But to tell us that you can only go back 8 to 10 generations when we got carbon date information and other ways to test that go back to that goes back to Nesebiti King Tut and further back, even to Dink Nesh, which is 3.5 million years, in which I think that's a generous number. I think it goes back further. But you can't tell me that you can only go back 10 generations with these tests that they're doing now, when we know that these scientists are testing bones and things of that nature, hair follicles, that dates back millions of years. So just to put that out there to what you're saying, Baba, you are absolutely correct. And I don't ascribe to be no expert in that field whatsoever, but I do read. And what I have read from those who put this information out, it's not adding up to me. And I say that it's a great segue into my question. This is geared toward Baba Olatunji. And Baba Olatunji, in the book, Raising Awareness, Past, Present, Future, you and Baba Mkuu confront a question that still echoes across generations. And that is, why do we deny being African and Black? And why do we have to ascribe to the Nile Valley to confirm our Blackness, when at one point in time, the continent of Africa that we call it today was all of us? Yes, we broke off into different tribes and things of that nature, but if we want to go back scientifically to the first human being, or who we come from, the Khoi or the San people, again, we're learning more about that as we continue our journey. But the question remains, as you dig into chapter 3, and dig down into what you're talking about, you know, what is it on why we have a hard time accepting us being African? Not just Black, but being African for that matter in today's time.
Well, for me, the basic core issue is one of self-hatred and loathing. If the images of who you are projected to be debased, savage, ignorant, all the things that we've been taught that Africans are, then it's easy for people to try to develop ideologies and concepts that would make us look to other folks and other things to develop a positive value for ourselves, rather than to look to ourselves and see if there's any value. Like I just tell people, like when people say certain things, well, who told you that you get that? So the images of African people being negative and, you know, all the things about Africa come from our mortal enemy. So part of the problem is our acceptance of what our mortal enemies have told us is quote unquote good, quote unquote correct, and positive, those types of things. So it's I'll give you one example. So they tell us that the Muslim says that the ancient committee who worshipped were polytheists and that they worship many gods. So the question I asked was, where did you get that idea from? Or they worship the sun. Where did you get that idea from?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't trace the source of the idea back to your own people, then it's easy if you look to other people for answers. We have to stop looking to them for the answers for ourselves and look back to within. Look at ourselves. We have to, one, Kebuka, remember, two, Sankofa, reach back and fetch it. We got to go back. And this is going to be part of the problem. Is not only just our ignorance, it's our apathetic laziness. We got to stop being lazy. We got to stop watching a little YouTube video, get a little snippet of something, and then we the world's greatest experts. We come out here and start spewing a whole lot of stuff that is maybe only partially accurate, but very inaccurate. Mm-hmm. So precision is the key in terms of how we look at things. So, you know, when I hear people say, like sometimes, like in that chapter you're talking about, they say, "Well, where are the ships that brought us over here? We're indigenous to this land." And I said, "Well," when they say, "Well, where are the ships that brought us over?" I asked the question. I said, "Well, how come you not ask them where the ships brought white folks over here? How come you not ask about those ships?" So it's only the ships that brought us over here that may have disappeared. Then we got to analyze, well, how did the ships disappear? So when we look at the ships, many of those ships disappeared because they were made of wood. They were only designed to last for a certain amount of years. And there's something most people don't know. There's this water worm. I forgot what it's called right now. But that worm eats up wood and it lives in the water. So, and it attaches itself to ships. So remember, up until the middle to the end of the 19th century, most ships are made of wood. Mm-hmm. So it didn't last that long. So that's why the ships aren't around. But those same ships brought white folks over here. But I don't hear you saying nothing about the ships bringing white folks over here. So it's a dumb question, but it gets at the heart of it's what Mkuu likes to say. They want to be a contrarian for contrary's sake.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so it's like I said, it stems from self-hate and all of the projections that we saw on TV growing up. A movie that came out in 1990, it was still pushing it. The idea. The movie Boys in the Hood. So it's a conversation. They were real talking to each other. And
the young boy says that he's an African, and then the other boy said, I ain't no African booty scratcher. Ha, 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 ha. You see what I'm saying? So when you're taught that you're less than, you start to try to look for positives in other things. That's why you have so-called black folks saying that they're Hebrew Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
See, so they build a whole ideology off of a false narrative, because in ancient times, there were no people in ancient times called Hebrew Israelites, because there was no place called Hebrew, and there was no place called Israel in ancient times. So, but when you're told that the story in the Bible is real, and you believe that story, it's easy to claim that. Same thing with being the original Arabs was black. That's not true either, because you got to now go and deal with a timeline. So when you deal with the chronological timeline, you see that the term Arab is an AD term. You know what I mean? And so when you see that, you realize that the Arabic language is an evolving language that evolved, but wasn't even a fully developed language until the 7th century AD. Mm-hmm. So you see what I'm saying? So you got to, part of the problem is, I always tell people when we start studying history, you got to be correct with your chronological timelines. Your chronological timelines will tell you a lot. And then you got to go into the etymology and the origin of the language and the words that you're using. You got to get into all of that. That takes time. See, we want everything yesterday. You can't get it like that. Like Brother Batu said, I've been studying for 50 years myself. You know, I started studying when I was 20 years old. I'm 71 years old now. So I've been doing this a long time. You know, and it was an evolutionary process. I didn't get to where I am all at one time, because I too was tricked by some of that nonsense myself. I used to be a practicing Muslim, had even risen to the position of being an imam. But as I grew in African consciousness and into African history and became African, I realized that foolishness and let it go, which I did early on. See, and so that becomes the reason why we have so much self-hatred, because this society, and most of the system created by white folks is built on self-hate, you know, projecting the self-hate that we have for each other and ourselves onto us. And they not only that, they build it into all of the things that they project around the world. So we help participate in some of that projection, because we get into the music industry is a classic example. You look at the music videos and you see all of that nonsense, that debased nonsense, and they got us doing it. So the world thinks that we're nothing but criminals, thugs, and hooligans, and they think our women are nothing but sexual toilets. Because when they project our women, that's all our women is doing is gyrating and the whole nine. So all of that is playing into that. See, so but yeah, the problem is again our self-hatred and our lack of knowledge, so that we can see the positive of why we are African people and why we're so great. Slavery is a blimp in our history.
Yeah,
we go back thousands upon thousands of years, and we did a lot of things right for a long time. Far longer than we did anything than this slavery thing is. I love a quote by Dr. John Henry Clark, who says, he says, civilization was old in Africa before the first European wore shoe or lived in a house with a window.
Right. That's right.
You see? And so, and we say civilization, we talk about all of the elements of civilization: math, science, medicine, architecture, engineering,
that's right.
Everything that's necessary to build a society. We were doing it before anybody else.
That's
and we
right.
were doing, and we did it longer and correctly and positively longer than anybody else, by thousands of years, not a couple of hundred years, by thousands of years.
That's right.
And part of the destabilizing process of that was our own avarice. That's how we got into this. Because our greed, our laziness after we started living fat on the hog, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got to where we are. That's partially how. So I liken it to nobody was minding the store.
Ashe.
Tribalism wasn't supposed to be our curse. It was how we honored ecology and lineage. But as I've come to know, white supremacy saw that order and said, break it, fragment it. A total decentralization of power. And family, they weaponized tribe to kill nationhood. But do we do it to ourselves? So Batu, in your book, Tribalism, Mysticism, Primitivism, and the Rise of Genocide Against the African World, Baba, you break it down, Mentacide as the deliberate and systematic destruction of a people's mind. That's not just confusion, that's warfare. So my question, Baba, is how do we begin to reclaim our thought patterns and our mental diet so we can reverse the damage of Mentacide and restore African clarity? In 5 minutes, Baba.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's if you can tailor it to that
number. So yeah. Well, we have to recover that, and to recover it, there are some very practical things that we can do. I always say we need to start being more proactive and more selective in the material that we purchase that's going to bring us out of our mental-cidal state. That's one of the major things that we've got to do. You know, menticide is perpetrated by, in large measure, menticide is perpetrated by misinformation. Mm-hmm. You know, which ties right into what Baba Mwamba said and what Baba Mkuu said and what I'm co-signing, that a great deal of the menticide that has taken place in the African world is because of misinformation.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And what we've got to do is start, again, those of us who are leaders and scholars within the African world, especially the scholars within the African world, we've got to start being very, very intentional in terms of the information that we're putting out here, because we need to know that this information is going to be critical for our people to be able to hang their hat on as we move forward towards our freedom and independence. Okay.
I love that statement. So, intentional. Yes.
Yes. So we have got to do that type of work to deal with the menticide that has happened throughout the African world. We also need to be clear that even though we're out here doing work to heal ourselves and ultimately liberate ourselves, we must never lose sight of the fact that our enemies are doing their work too. They're not waiting for you and I to get our act together. Okay?
Oh, no.
They're moving in earnest to make the things that they have on the table, to do to us, they're making these things happen. So they're not waiting for you and I to get it together and all the rest of that. In fact, they're hoping that we never get it together. That by the time we wake up, get up, in fact, strike that wake up part, because I have gone on record as saying that African people are already awake. We're wide awake. We have thousands of years of instruction under our belt. We got the information. It's because of our self-hatred, our enemy fear, that we're not acting on the information. But it's not because we don't have it. Yes. We do have it. Now, that having been said, we have got to reach a point of understanding that our situation today is critical. There's only one step under critical condition. If you know anything about the medical field, critical is the next step to the graveyard.
Yes.
That's where African people are globally. We're in critical condition. So when we write our books, and put out our information, we must put it out intentionally, and we must put it out with a sense of urgency. We've got to understand the urgency of the horrible global condition that we're in. And we've got to take this seriously. And I mean dead seriously. Because the enemies that we have are not playing with us. I say that all of the time. They're not playing with us. Most of us, we are playing, because like has been pointed out to all of us as elders have pointed this out, that most of us are just concentrating on becoming happier and more comfortable slaves.
Yep.
That's all we're interested in being. As long as I'm happy and comfortable, I'm not. Well, I hear all of the black stuff, and yeah, they're doing a lot of stuff to us that's wrong and all the rest. I get all of that, but see, I'm trying to get me that new Lexus. Okay, so I know y'all talking all that black stuff, but while y'all talking that, I'm gonna be pursuing getting this Lexus and getting me a nice crib and get me some more greenbacks in my pocket and all the rest of that. So that's comfortable enslavement. Okay, that's not going to solve our problem, because when an enemy kills you, hear me well on this. When an enemy successfully annihilates another people, everything that they have belongs to the enemy. That's how that goes. So you can get all the Lexuses that you want. You can get all the money that you want. You can get the big fine house that you want. You can get all of the material comforts that you want. But at the end of the day, when I get through with you, I'm collecting all of that stuff. And that's exactly what happened in ancient Kemet.
Yes.
The conquerors took all of that wonderful, great, powerful stuff that we built. They took every stitch of it. They got all of it. So me and you pursuing cars and diamond rings and watches and all the rest of the, all this bling bling that we acquiring, that we stockpiling, that stuff means nothing. Because in the end of the day, when I get rid of you, I'm taking all of that. Plus, to make matters even worse, to show you how out of our minds we are, all of the stuff that we're trying to get our hands on to make ourselves happier and more comfortable, guess what? They mass produce all of that. So they got a whole bunch of that stuff already. You ain't did nothing because you got a new car. Negro, I make cars. You forgot about that, huh? I mass produced that car that you so proud of. Those big, nice, fine homes with 12-room mansions, 20-room mansions. I mass build those structures. I do those structures in mass. I do that stuff for breakfast in the morning.
Yep.
You all in love head over heels with creature comforts. If you were doing what you were supposed to do, you'd be producing those creature comforts for yourself. And then probably you wouldn't be so in love with them, because then you'd be the one producing it. We're not producers, and that is a major part of the problem that confronts the African world. And until you and I become independent modern-day producers and skilled modern-day fighters, don't forget about the fighters. Until you and I become both of those things, you and I can forget it. The genocidal process is going to take its course, and you and I will be an afterthought in the world. So this is the charge that the African world is confronted with. We got serious work to do. It's not a joke. It's not a game. We got to get on the ball, and we need what we used to call back in the day. The African world needs an A-team out here now. Okay. Not no scrubs, not nobody that's just talking, not nobody that's just trying to get a thumbs up on Facebook or something like that. No, we need serious thinkers, serious scholars who have taken the time and are not worried about whose toes I'm going to step on if I tell this truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they got a problem with hearing the truth, then you shouldn't be worried about them no way.
Right.
Because our lives are at stake.
Absolutely.
And we need folks out here, like I said, the A-team. And they can't be shucking and jiving and apologetic about what they saying. I'm not apologizing for nothing that I say.
Nothing.
I make sure before I say it that I have well researched it. I don't just talk off the cuff, the top of my head, what I think this is. Like Baba Mwamba just said, we got to do our research and we got to do it well.
Yep.
You got to do your research and do it well. So when you speak with authority, and you know what your stuff is saying is correct because you done double checked it and triple checked it before you put it out here.
I say.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
So-
I share.
Fire. That's why we got to get all three of you Babas on the other side of the Mississippi. You know, if Baba Shakari, I know you in Illinois, but you still on the other side of the Mississippi because Iowa is on the west side of the Mississippi. So I need all three of you Babas to get on over here in Iowa because we need y'all, Baba. We need y'all.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that this podcast and this information that we put out is helpful for those who actually are listening, not to respond, but listening to hear and put some of this stuff in practice.
That's right.
Ashe?
Ashe.
So I want to take this time real quick and do a quick temperature check with you, Reya'Sekhmet. And I just want to, make sure that, there's a lot of things, again, that we're talking about, that we're saying, and that I want to make sure that you're in good shape. You're still following. I know you're processing a lot of this stuff, but, speak to the family.
All is well. After hearing everyone speak, I feel like my spirit got sharpened. And I see now that some people use words like weapons, but they don't have soul behind them. They talk loud, but they don't speak truth. I feel like what we're doing here is different. We're not just defending ourselves. We're protecting our future from people that want us to doubt ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Question our families and forget who we are.
That's
But
good.
family, I won't forget because I won't be confused. I know where I come from. I come from warriors, and I know my voice matters. So thank you, Babas, for giving me the tools to fight back with truth, with clarity, and with love for my people. Now I'm ready to keep building.
Well, Ashe. Reya'Sekhmet has just entered into the discussion. You feeling that energy?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
And we are honored for sure. We are honored.
I'm honored.
So, Baba Olatunji, in chapter 13 of your book, you named the real elephant in the room, and that is child sexual abuse and its connection to the homosexualization of our children. You asked the question, why? And again, family, I'm referring to the book, An African-Centered Response to the LGBTQIA plus organization and their agenda, the conversation no one wants to have. And my question is, Baba, why the LGBTQIA organizations never address this root cause, and why they remain silent on pedophilia, never condemning it publicly, and refuse to advocate for healing from the trauma it causes. And as Reya'Sekhmet said earlier, anyone who harms a child sexually, psychologically, or even spiritually is worthy of the strongest punishment, up to death if necessary. So I asked Baba Olatunji, why has the connection between childhood sexual abuse and adult sexual confusion been so aggressively ignored? And what are the consequences of that silence for our children, our families, our future, and the African village?
Well, let's deal with the first part. The reason they've been silent is because they advocated. If you go back to chapter 10 of my book, I list several advocacy stances that they take. There's the 1972 Gay Rights Platform. There's the 1993 March on Washington platform. And in both of those platforms, they advocate the abolishment of all sexual, what's the term? Age of sexual consent. I'm sorry. So they want to abolish the age of sexual consent, because in this country, in most states, the age of sexual consent between an adult and the so-called minor is the age of 16. So once they get to 16, the laws say that they can now consent to sex, even though they could still be groomed into it. But what they want to do is abolish the laws governing the age of sexual consent. That way that they can have access to children of any age. So this is a part of their advocacy. That's why they're silent. What most of our people don't, how many people know about the 1972 Gay Rights Platform or have read it? And when you read it, you see all of the things that they have been advocating since 1972. And you also will conclude and see how many of those things that they've advocated have become law that were not law when they first started advocating them. You know, like gay marriage, gays adopting children. None of that was law in 1972. And see, the thing is that a lot of these laws started coming about when most Black people that you and I might have discussions with were just being born, or had just been born maybe 5 or 10 years when these things started happening. So by the time they become adults, it's already the law. So for instance, like I said, in 1972, I was 18 years old. So, and I had already been politicized to some degree, having been a former member of the Black Panther Party for Defense, even though I was only in there for 6 months. So I want to make sure people understand that. I was only in it for 6 months, from the age of 15 and a half until I was getting ready to turn 16. So I wasn't in there long. And my job, I was classified as what they call a junior Panther. I was not a full-fledged Panther. And the only job I had was to chronicle police brutality where I saw it, and then report back to them and let them know the events that I saw. So that was my job. I left the Panther Party in mid-April to late April of 1970 to start a singing group with my best friend. I was a singer. That was my aspiration going back to childhood. So when I saw the opportunity to try to do that, that's what I did. So that's another. So I mentioned some of that in the my bio in the book. I mentioned some of that. But anyway, so that's the reason that they don't say anything, because they advocate it. And so they try to, when you present this to them and you accuse them, they will say, "Oh no, homosexuality and pedophilia aren't the same." But here's the deal: most pedophiles sexually abuse their children of the same sex. That's not to say they don't abuse children of the opposite sex now, but the majority of the men who sexually abuse children, they abuse boys. Now, what that does is it traumatizes those children, so that by the time they become adults, that's why we see so many flaming homosexuals. Now, we also have to deal with the predators in our midst, because many of us have sexual deviants in our families or close friends of our families who come around and prey on our children. So we have that to worry about as well. And as you were saying earlier about the punishment, in this regard, I wouldn't care if they were polka dot. If you touch a child, you deserve to die. You're supposed to now become food for the worms. Plain and simple. You need a permanent dirt nap. No questions asked. That's my position, and I apologize to no one for it. No one. You touch a child, you deserve to die. Period. Because what most people don't realize is that pedophiles will tell you, if you let them out, they're going to do it again. So if you're not going to give them the death sentence, at the very least, they should never, ever see the streets again. Ever. Period. They should die in prison. You don't want to kill them? Okay. They don't deserve to ever walk the streets again. So that's my position on that. In regards to the other issue about the trauma, is that we now need to, well, the first thing we got to do is acknowledge that it is trauma, because part of the problem is that as these young people become adults, many of them go into a mode of amnesia, intentional amnesia in this case, to try to come to terms with their trauma. So rather than acknowledge how they got from point A to point B, they will rationalize the point B part of it and expect us to accept their behavior simply because of the trauma that helped produce it. And so what we have to do, and I keep saying this, and I know this offends a lot of people, but it is true. Mm-hmm. If that's what you want to do, if you want to participate in that death style, fine. But you don't get to come into our organizations participating in those behaviors, because as we were discussing yesterday, we were talking about our moral compass. So all of our organizations should have a moral compass that's deeply embedded in African-centeredness. And so African-centeredness, there's no room for Euro-Asiatic, sexually deviant, sexually degenerate behaviors such as we're discussing today. There's no room for them. So they have to find someplace else to go and they can do their thing. But if they want to come and be with us, they first have to go and get serious psychological help for, what has happened to them. And then come to terms with that, and then stop participating in that behavior, and perhaps advocating for it as well. Perhaps we could allow them back in. That's my stance. Again, I apologize to no one for that stance. Period.
Facts. And I don't think none of us on this panel will see it any differently. So Ashe to you, Ashe.
Ashe. So, Babas, here's what I heard, and I want to say it again in the way for the listeners can understand too. And family, that is, the enemy does not just want our land. He wants our bodies. They want our minds, and they want us to think like them and talk like them and forget who we are. That's how they keep control over us. And I've come to know we've been taught to trust systems that were never built for us. Even our dreams can be colonized, especially if we don't check the roots. And family, we've got to stop measuring ourselves by their standards, because their ruler was never meant to fit our greatness. So if you're listening right now and you're young like me, ask yourself, who taught you to think this way? Does this idea help you grow, or does it shrink you? That's what I'm hearing today. That's how we start to break the change. We're not just learning, we're unlearning, and that's where the power begins.
Let's get busy. Okay, so Baba Mkuu, we're gonna put you first. Then you're gonna kick it off. Some folks say, and we may have touched on this both with you Baba Mkuu and Baba Shakari, but if I have, I want to bring it back around for this discussion. But some people say that we got to infiltrate the system to beat it. But Baba Shakari warned us, you can't serve two masters and expect to stay whole. In your opinion, Baba Mkuu, do you think we need to be the spook who sat by the door, or is that just another trap? Because we all know from the book and the movie, and that it showed, if I learn their system, can I flip it, or will it flip me? Basically, Baba, is infiltration a strategy or a slow death of our soul and ultimately the African village?
Excellent question. Basically, we've already infiltrated their system. We are the masters of infiltration. We're already enmeshed all in their system and in their politics and everything else. The fact of the matter is, how do we change our our value system as it concerns our role, our infiltrated role in this system, since we already have things in place. The Spook, we already know all those things. We know their political systems. We know everything. Here's the deal, though. Here's the rub. Here's where we're at. Brother Batu brought up creature comforts, those basic life requirements. You know, there's no way around that. We have to have that. We have to supply our needs with the basic things that will give us our survival and everything within this system, this European capitalistic system. Now, now how far do we go with that? You know what I mean? I would venture to say that the very first thing I say that's going to sound insane to people is your goal should not to be a millionaire and a billionaire. You know, your goal should be to subsist on as a comfortable level as you can without being totally obsessed with material gains. You know, but people look at me as though I'm going to be insane by saying that. How do you have the right to tell me whether I want to be rich or not? Or just like Brother Batu said, you know, I want to get one of those McMansions that they kick out, you know, like every 2 months or so. You know what I mean? I could spend 1.5 million, 2 million for a house that was built in less than 6 months. Or sometimes 3 months, depending on how good they are at that. So we have to look at the creature comforts. That's number one. Now, do we participate in the process? We really have no choice. You know, we really have no choice but to participate. We can't live in a society and be at and be at the will of our oppressors. You know what I mean? Can we have any? We're not going to have total control. You know what I mean? By being a senator and being in the House of Representatives, be a state senator, being a councilman of our local government, being a mayor, you know, being a governor. You know, there's only so many privileges that we're going to get by being those things. But we can do what we can on a local level to offset the amount of oppression that we're subjected to, because economic power and political power basically do coincide. You know what I mean? So when you look at the Asians, when you look at the Europeans, I'm talking about the different factions of Europeans. I know with me being from Philadelphia, I can't speak for other cities, but I know with me being in Philadelphia, you know, I would go from different sections of the city and I would see a shopping center with just Ukrainian shops and a, you know, shopping center. I mean, everything was there for the Ukrainians. We already know about the Chinatown things. You know, you go to Chinatown. Chinatown has everything based on the Chinese people. You know, when you go to an area where there's nothing but Vietnamese shops and stuff like that, the political system caters to power. They cater to a group of people who are economically viable in their community. They know that this system, if they are going to survive, they're going to need the support of influential people. We are not influential because we're just consumers. That's all we are. So once we rise above the level of consumers and become producers, as Brother Batu said, then we will have some political power. Okay, and then we can take it it's a step-by-step process. We're not used to being producers. We're not used to yielding that kind of power, because the kind of power that we have, you know, as that. Well, let's look at the the Black Caucus, the African Black Caucus. You know, how many people do you think there have that kind of an influence on European society? You know, because they speak for the Black people. I would say they don't have a whole lot of influence. Not on their own body, not in the House of Representatives. They have no influence over there. Okay, they don't have no influence over there at all. But political power needs to be something that is redundant. In order for us to gain the kind of power that we need, the influence that we need within this system, we have to have a consistent message, a redundant message, especially an African one, just like the Ukrainians, just like the Chinese, just like the Japanese. You know what I mean? So if you come over here and mess with our base, there's going to be consequences, because they still look at their political process, the Europeans, as something that's valuable to them. That's valuable to them. So they want you to vote. They want you to do all these things. Maybe not so much on a national level, but on the state level, on the local level, they want you to do that. So how can we not be involved on the local and the state politics? We have to be if we're going to live here. Okay, so we need to have an African presence. Our message has to be African. It has to be redundant. There has to be a common mission and cause, African. It has to be execution. It's got to be a follow through. And then any community organizations, because the single leaders, as we know, is not going to be our way of maintaining or attaining this goal that I talked about this group, political, economic kind of power base kind of a thing within these politics of the European capitalist paradigm. But we have to have organizations who are on the same wavelength, who are preaching the same things, who understand how invaluable our children are, who understand that you have to have leaders within these organizations that put African people first. Mm-hmm. That's what those Ukrainians do. That's what those Czechs do. That's what those Asians do. That's what those Japanese do. That's what the Arabs do. That's what the Indians do. They all do the same things. We have not done that. Once we understand our power within, I know it sounds like hypocritical in a sense, but a leader will tell you this is the way that we have to go. The realism of our situation, this is where we have to go. We can't sit back and just allow things to happen to us on a local and state level. We have to gain some kind of an influence. And the way we do that is by claiming our Africanity and our African culture. And then just like every other group in existence that does that, then we'll see that we will have political power and that we don't have to be the spook that sat by the door anymore, as you said. Mm-hmm. That's my spiel on that.
I've come to realize that this waiting can be a trap for us. Not the kind where you sit still and grow, but the kind where you sit still and shrink. You all are showing me that compromise isn't always peace. It can be surrender. It feels as though when we wait too long for change to come from outside, we forget that we're born to build ourselves.
And so on that note, Baba, I want to throw this question at you, Baba Mkuu, this question. So I want to throw it at you. And that is, based on your works with raising awareness and your book, An African-Centered Response to the LGBTQIA+, you recognize infiltration without integrity as suicide. So I just want to throw this question at you as well. And that is, in your opinion, for us as Africans in 2025 and beyond, do we need to be the spook who sat by the door, or is it just another way to lose ourselves? And will that even work in today's time? So I just say that and round it out with, do we need to put our humanity to the side so that we can get busy and fight this war and ultimately win?
Well, in regards to the first part of your question, sure, we can still use spooks who sit by the door because we still need information on what they're doing, what they're planning. So if we got people inside who want to bring that information out to us, I don't see why we shouldn't accept that information, or why we shouldn't have those who are intelligent enough and who are already African-centered go in and hide and go in there and get it. Because we're trying to win. So that winning sometimes might require a degree of compromise of our that moral. That should be the only time we should be compromising the moral compass for the greater good. I'll give you an example. Back in I believe it's the late 70s, early 80s. The Pakistani government had sent this Pakistani student to Great Britain to study, all of whatever the sciences are relative to nuclear technology. So he went, and at some point he got his hands on the materials that would allow them to build a nuclear bomb. Now, India already had a nuclear bomb, and they've been waging war with the Indians, people of India, for because Pakistan is really, the Pakistanis are nothing but Indians, but they have a political ideology and religious ideology that has separated them now, because most of the Pakistanis are Muslims, while most of the Indians are Hindus and or Buddhists or Sikh. So, but anyway, so what happened was he went there, he was smooth, man. And some kind of way he got access to that stuff. And when he did, he got a hold of the materials, because what he did was he cut it into this white girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he had sex with her and whatever, blew her mind, the whole nine, And then the next thing you know, he got the material. So now at some point, either she realized she had been played, or the authorities realized that she had been played. And so they came to get him. The problem was he was already on a plane to Pakistan.
Mm.
And by the time they got to the airport, he was in Pakistan with the material. And that's how Pakistan was able to get the bomb. And so I'm using it as an example of how you use strategies that may compromise your moral compass at that time for the greater good of doing what you need to do for your people.
Thanks.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So so sometimes, we can send somebody in and get what we need. Now there was a second part to your question. Can't remember what part it was.
Oh, the other part was, and I think you answered this, was I was asking, do we need to put our humanity to the side and get busy?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry to say, it should only be relative to that point. If it's just for the sake of being immoral, we should. That would be the only instance where I would say we should be doing that.
So Baba Olatunji, for the LGBTQIA organizations aren't just pushing ideology, they're weaponizing language, and they're labeling those opposed to their lifestyle behaviors as hateful and marginalizing anyone who disagrees with them. They're gaslighting us with this pseudophobia, forcing us to choose between silence or punishment. And Baba, you made it clear in your book that disagreement is not hate and correction is not cruelty. So my question is, when we're talking about a call to action, again, from your book, how do we African-centered families and leaders navigate this climate of psychological warfare where love is redefined and truth is punished? What strategies must we adapt to protect our right to speak, correct, and love without compromise?
Okay, so as I was saying, we need to develop a backbone. That's first and foremost. Stand on your square. But in order to develop that backbone, we have to have correct information, facts, and evidence. So that means that requires all of us to do some research to know that the terms we're using are correct and accurate. I provided the information, the evidence, and the documentation to prove that the stances that I've taken are proper and correct. So when we start talking about what is homophobia and transphobia and the like, it would behoove people to read my book, in particular chapter 8, which deals specifically with the term homophobia and transphobia, and proves that those two terms are not psychiatric terms. Those terms are political terms that were created to silence any criticism, to silence any stance that is in opposition to their agenda. That's the reason for those terms to be used. Because when we look up the term phobia, phobia is a clinical psychiatric term that is included in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's in section 300.2, pages 197 through 235. So, as you can see, I tell you where the evidence is so that you can go directly to it, even though I provide that evidence in the book. But just so people don't think that I don't want them to think that I'm fibbing or playing here. So there's no such thing as being a homophobia. A phobia is a clinical psychiatric term that is defined as an extreme, irrational fear of someone or something. Most of us who oppose these Euroasiatic, sexually degenerate, sexually deviant, mentally deranged behaviors, we oppose them because we know they're incorrect. Mm-hmm. We don't hate anybody. It's not even about hate. We don't have to hate you to disagree with you. We have the right to disagree. You act as if we don't have the right to disagree. I remember I was working with a guy one time. This was back in the beginning of 2020, just before the COVID thing jumped off. And I didn't realize he was homosexual. And we were having a discussion about these behaviors. And this was at a time when I was just starting to write the book. Now, I already had much of the information. Mm-hmm. And as I was talking, there was a woman that went by that worked with us. She was a lesbian. And I knew she was a lesbian. And so I kind of tabled the discussion until after she walked by. So after she walked by, I said to him, well, you know, she's a lesbian, right? And then he raised his hand like this, as if to say, so am I. So all this time that I was having this discussion, he never told me he was homosexual. Now, I was intuitive enough and intelligent and smart enough to never use any derogatory terms in my discussion of this, them and their behavior. Mm-hmm. So when he pointed that out to me, I said to him, well, let me say this to you. He was Caucasian. And I said, I have as much right to disagree with your behavior as you do to practice it.
Facts.
And he agreed. And so because I wanted him to know, if you go up there and try to the supervisor and try to say that somehow I'm homophobic, I was already prepared. I know exactly what to do. And if that wasn't enough, I would take what I have, the documented evidence, and take your ass to court and sue you. So that I had no fear about that at all. That's the thing. See, the problem is that when they come at us, most of us don't have the relevant information to stand up. And that's why we don't have the backbone. They bully us, intimidate us, and they use what I call political, economic, intellectual, and social terrorism to terrorize us into compliance and to capitulate to the whims of what they want us to do. So, but if we have the evidence, if we have my book, and this is why I'm not, it's not just a matter of me selling it because I want to be famous. I want people to have the book because I know it will help them fight back. Because I put 432 pages of documentation in this book. It has peer-reviewed research studies. It has quotes by them telling you that they have an agenda and what their agenda is. So I took about 4 or 5 organizations and I show you what they say their agenda is. So for somebody to say that they don't have an agenda or to try to rephrase what that agenda is, they are being disingenuous and or they are completely ignorant of what that those organizations are articulating as their agenda. So that's that part. Now the second part was, I can't remember what the second part of your question was.
Just trying to get some strategies to help the African family adopt something to protect our right to speak.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. And love without compromise.
Yes. So what we do there is, again, we go back to my book, because my book tells you the importance of the meanings of the words as well as the origin. Now, because they have developed all of these different terms, and they've been extremely successful in imposing those terms into everyday discussions. Mm-hmm. And so what has happened is that because of that, we just adopt the terms ourselves. So as straight people, we should never adopt those terms. And that's another thing. I'm not a heterosexual. I'm straight. And I advise everybody who is Black to stop using the term heterosexual, because heterosexuality was the term that was devised and designed by a man named Carl Marie Kirkpenny in 1869. He also came up with he's the one who came up with the term homosexuality in 1868. And he was a known homosexual. So you see, most of these terms that they're giving us come from think tanks, LGBTQ think tanks. So they are forcing us to take on terms that they have adopted and defined for us. And so if we don't know these types of things, we fall right into the trap of helping them without knowing it. So again, this is why my book is paramount in helping us develop those types of strategies to fight back. Now, as regards to the love portion of that of what you said, the love part, I always ask this question, and I mentioned it, and I know because you read the book in chapter 18. How did we get to a point where just because I don't agree with you means I don't love you? I often ask my own children, I ask them, I said, well, look, I said, when you were a child, if I chastised you about something that you were doing that was wrong, did you ever think that I didn't love you as I was chastising you for what you did that was incorrect? And my children would always say, no. I said, exactly. That's the point. Disagreement with something that you're doing because I know that it's incorrect does not mean I don't love you. In fact, it actually proves I love you even more because I want what I know is best for you. And I know that this behavior is destructive and completely detrimental to you individually and to us collectively. Yeah. Look, we're gonna lose some family. Some of us might be the only one in the battle in our own family, in this battle, this war that's being waged against us that we're fighting back. So whatever our stance is uh, must be held regardless of the family member. Now, again, we can say we love them, and we can even actually have conversations with them or be around them for, say, a family event. I have several members who are afflicted with this behavior.
Yeah, it's sickness.
Yeah, but I always tell them, look, I love you. That's what I start with. And so, and I'll even hug them and all that. But it does not mean I'm going to accept that behavior, nor am I required to, and I'm not going to allow them to try to shame me into doing it. Because that's another thing they use, it's a tactic they use. And they say, you don't love me. And I say, how did you get that I don't love you simply because I disagree with your behavior? Where did you get that from? That's a strategy and a tactic that the LGBTQ think tank had produced. See, again, they're using strategies, and we have not developed strategies for in the opposition of those strategies. In the book, I try to show you that at the very end. But the first thing I did was I had to give you the evidence that nobody is born gay. There's no such thing as being born gay, or because in order to be born gay, there has to be a gay gene. There's no research, peer-reviewed research studies proving anybody has a gay gene or is born gay. So that means there has to be some other stuff going on that brings a person to want to participate in their lifestyle. Because babies aren't even thinking about sex. The only thing a baby's thinking about when they come here is, can I get some milk? And can I be changed? And can you give me some love, some affection that allows me to know that somebody cares? That's what babies are looking for. Babies ain't looking for none of that other foolishness y'all talking about. And so that means that adults are socializing these children into these behaviors by either brainwashing, subliminal seduction, social engineering, or sexual abuse, or a combination of all of those. That's how these children are getting into this behavior. And so that's how they're trying to impose it and force us to accept it. So they use that as the premise and the rationalization to not speak out against it or to try to condemn those of us who do. And so what I always tell people, you can't use that as a premise for me because I have family members who are afflicted with it as well. And so some of my family members have stopped speaking to me, and I just say, okay, that's something I have to live with. And I do. But for me, my stance is about us as a race of people. What is in the best interest of us? What will help us grow and become the people we were before and can become again? And acceptance of any of those behaviors will only allow us to remain right where we are, nowhere.
So for the family way in the back, imagine your mind is like a garden. Everywhere someone says to you is either a seed or a weed. People that use big words and fake facts make Black people feel confused, ashamed, or silent or weak. They sound smart, but their words are sneaky. They try to plant doubt, fear, and confusion in your soil. If you don't know who you are, then those weeds can grow fast and choke your truth. But when you know your roots, your ancestors, your culture, and your purpose, then you become a master gardener and you spot the weeds quicker. And once you spot them, you pull them out. And you plant seeds of clarity, love, and power instead. So when someone tries to debate you with twisted facts or disrespect, don't panic. Just check your soil. Ask, is this helping me grow or is it trying to bury me? Because once you do that, then speak your roots. Family, that's how you win.
And on that note, I want you to take this time and close out with promoting your book and any other event you got going on.
Okay. I employ every Black person of goodwill, of sincerity, who really wants to know the truth to purchase my book. The book is entitled An African-Centered Response to the LGBTQIA plus organizations, the conversation in their agenda, the conversation no one wants to have. And so every Black person should have my book in their library and not just sitting on the shelf. You need to sit down and honestly take it page by page and read it. And the one thing that you will conclude if you read my book sincerely, you will see that I have an undying love for my people, for Black people. And that's why I wrote the book, because I know that going down the road of support and or participation in the LGBTQIA agenda and those behaviors is going to destroy us as a race of people. And so we need all hands on deck to speak out against this. All of those who say you are conscious, all of those who say you are African-centered, stand up, be a man, be a woman, and speak out on these behaviors because they are wrong. They are completely anti-African, anti-life, and do not serve us and will not serve us as a race of people. They will be destructive in every sense of the word. They are those behaviors are unhealthy. They are disease-ridden. They're mentally challenged and will produce all types of mental disorders and psychosis. So I implore every Black person, if you're sincere, if you love Black people, you will purchase my book. You will take the time to read it. And if you do, you will see why it was necessary to be written in the first place and why it is so important to the overall discussion of the upliftment of us as a race of people. And with that, I leave you with with a quote that I have in the book by this guy, white guy, I think. He said, "The further society drifts from the truth, the more they will hate those who speak it." With that, I say, Ashe.
Ashe. Let the family know where they can get the book at, Baba.
Okay, you can purchase the book at my Shopify website. That's Olatunji, OLATUNJI dash Mwamba, MWAMBA myshopify.com/collections/all. I implore everyone who is sincere, who wants to know the truth, to purchase this book. You will see why It is so important to have in your library once you read it.
There you have it. And there you go. Could you go ahead and promote whatever you got going on, Baba? The next event you're gonna be at, any of your books, you know, so we can go ahead and set the stage for that, and then we'll transition right into Baba Shakari closing us out with this last question.
Yeah, I think everybody knows about the art of leadership. I think, can everybody see that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. I think everybody knows about that. I think one of the things that we'll be looking at in the future, in the very near future, is having some kind of a base of a standard base of how we should act as Africans, how we should be as Africans, how we should perform as Africans within this particular. I keep saying European capitalist paradigm because it's exactly what it is. We are in a European capitalist paradigm. There's no other way to describe where we're living at.
Mm-hmm.
European capitalist paradigm. That's where we're at. We have to learn how to survive here and be here. So can we come up with African-centered organizations, educational institutions, African educational and economic institutions, and everything else, political institutions, where we can gain the kind of influence that we want. I think that, and you guys know, I think people who already know about the so-called Race First convention that we had in Baltimore this past weekend. It addresses that. It addresses a common theme that Africans must adopt, not just to procure and create leaders, but to create organizational leadership across the country. There has to be organizational leadership across the country, not just the individual. We know the individual leadership is not going to work. So the organizations have to lead us. And the only way they can lead us is by having this common theme, you know, this redundant theme of African-centered thought and process that everybody can be on board. Now, can we get people to come on board? I mean, the average African, the average Black person in the United States, can they get on board? Yeah, it can be, but we have to have the ability to influence those people. And whether we like it or not, we got to use all the propaganda, all the tricks, all the AI, and all the things, all the digital tools in the world to reach out to the populace, because they're being reached out to, you know, by media, by music, by other things. How come we can't do the same things? We have to do the same thing. We have to use all those tools at their disposal for us to broadcast an African conscious model that people can be attracted to. We have to find a way to make it attractive. And I think that's where we need to be.
Awesome. And Ashe, Baba, for sharing that information. Okay, Baba Shakari, I'm gonna need you to land your plane on this one. As we round out our discussion today, I'm gonna call it a call to action. Where do we actually go from here? And I want you to build off of what Baba Mkuu ended on, but you emphasized, Baba Shakari, that if you're not building, you're breaking. And we must stop waiting for permission. So Baba Shakari, I say that to say, for the family way in the back, because I know that we all know what time it is, but for the family way in the back who may be struggling, and for those solid warriors and warriors becoming, where do we actually go from here? And Baba, you got the last word, and please promote your book and, you know, weave that in and anything you got going on for the family.
Okay. All of what Brother Baba Mkuu said, I concur 1,000%. He's absolutely right. We have to be able to work with what we have at our disposal. And it doesn't matter, even if you're in the house of your enemy. The fact that you're in the house of your enemy should let all of us know that there are things that we must use within that house. Anything that you use in the house, other than your own ideas and stuff I get that. But I mean, in terms of if you're in the house of your enemy, you're gonna have to use the things in your enemy's house.
That's right.
That's all it is to it. The question becomes, and I think Baba Mkuu pointed it out very brilliantly, all people put the interest of themselves above everything else. It doesn't matter if you become a part of this part of the enemy system, that part, this part, the military, the police, the government. It doesn't matter. If you have the appropriate consciousness, if you have internalized the understanding that you, as an African, have certain responsibilities to the people who produced you, to use whatever is available to you to help your people, then that's going to be the guiding principle no matter where you are and no matter what it is that you're doing. That is the critical element, unfortunately, that's missing in the African world, okay? Mkuu said appropriately, we have access to just, not everything now, so I don't want to say that, but we have access to a great deal of the things that are going on in this society. We do. We got Black judges, we got Black policemen, we got Black military people, we got blacks are dispersed throughout this society. It's no question about that. The missing piece of the puzzle is the fact that we're missing that consciousness and that commitment that allows us, that compels us, I should say, to do the right thing by our own people within the framework of the system that we may be operating in within the white world. Okay? And that's that. That's the end of that. You develop the consciousness, you develop the commitment, and from there, it's going your consciousness and commitment is going to dictate to you what you should be doing in that system that you may find yourself in. And I don't care what the system is. Yeah. Even though other blacks may not feel that, they may see you as a traitor, for an example. I'm just going to use this as an example. In that groundbreaking movie, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, one of the first things that came out of the mouth of the gangbangers when he came back, into the hood and everything else, the first thing that came out their mouth was he was a traitor and a flunky. That's the first thing that came out their mouth. They didn't pay any attention whatsoever to his consciousness, his commitment. He was infinitely conscious and infinitely committed. In fact, that's the reason why he came back to the community, to the hood, because he saw the danger that his people was in. Okay? So it is your consciousness and commitment that is key. Okay? We don't have to worry so much about, where we can go and where we can't go. You already there. Right. Work on this. Work on this. And then do the work. Simple. Okay? In terms of what we ultimately need to do, I'd like to end on this note. Liberation is all about responsibility. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, that's what liberation is all about. It's about responsibility. It's about a nation of people taking full responsibility for every aspect of their own lives, land, development, and destiny. That's what, in a nutshell, that's what liberation is all about. It's about a nation of people, not one individual or two individuals or just their leaders or just their scholars. It is that whole body of people who take on the responsibility of seizing control over their own lives, land, development, and destiny. Anything less than that is not liberation. Us doing a bunch of talk, that ain't no liberation. You can talk all you want. The bottom line is, can we move as a people to seize control over those things? Can we move as a people to take full control over every aspect of our own lives? Mm-hmm. That means feeding yourself, housing yourself, clothing yourself, educating yourself, medically treating yourself when you get sick, producing your own technologies, your own machinery, your own weaponry, forming your own army, navy, air force, marines, special forces, space forces. This is what liberation is about. It ain't about you figuring out ways and means to make yourself more comfortable in somebody else's house. Nope. That's a death trap. When you depend on other people, that is automatically a death trap. Yep. Because your dependence puts you in a position of being put to death at the whim of another people who have control over everything. No sane and civilized people ever wants to be in a position of dependence. I said no sane and civilized people wants to be in that position, nor will they allow themselves to stay in that position. And we need to be clear about that. That is why I speak so adamantly about us clearly understanding what liberation means. Right. Okay? Begging for enemy crumbs ain't gonna free us. He'll give you the crumbs. I make money on printing machines. I don't care nothing about my crumbs. And I'm not gonna give you enough crumbs to even buy the stuff that you need to beat me. So that's a waste of precious time and energy. What we need to be concentrating on is how do we do the work that needs to be done for us to liberate ourselves from those who we depend on for everything. Mm-hmm. And we have the resources. I read a quote. I don't know who I read this from. I think it was on Facebook. But anyway, the quote was powerful. The quote said, and I'm just paraphrasing, it said that Africa is not poor. The continent of Africa is the richest continent on the earth. So we know Africa is not poor. It's African people that's poor. We're the ones that's poor. And that's because we're not self-loving. We're not self-united. We're not properly self-governing. We're not self-providing, nor are we self-protecting. All of those together read out one word: poverty. Mm-hmm. They read out one word: poverty. Yep. You poor. And any people that's poor is going to get taken advantage of. That's all it is to it. We're not going to stop the other people taking advantage of us until we become self-loving, self-united, self-governing, self-providing, and self-protecting. Mm-hmm. Until we do that, all of the other stuff is just talk. That's all it is. It's just talk, a bunch of talk. We have got to become a people of action. You got to act on the stuff that you learn. Once I learn it, I'm putting it in action. I don't have to talk about it no more. I done heard it. I'm on it. That's the mindset that we have got to develop as a people. I heard it. I got it. I read it. It's powerful. I know it's true. I'm on it. Yep. End the story. Once we get to that mindset, now you're talking. You're going to get some stuff done now. Mm. That's what other nations have done who have been brought here to the hells of North America. They put themselves first. Mm-hmm. They establish what their agenda is, what it is that they're looking out for, what they're seeking to achieve, and they move on it. That's what African people have got to do. I have said over and over again, African people, I know a lot of us may not want to hear this, but African people are not going to achieve freedom and independence here in America. What makes you think you're going to become free and independent in somebody else's house? Mm. That ain't happening. The freedom and independence that Dr. Batu Shakari is talking about is us taking our knowledge and skills back to our homeland and building a powerful and strong and formidable civilization and culture for ourselves. If you think that these enemies for 1 second is going to let you set up camp in their house, you're delusional. White folks ain't going to let you set up a damn thing in their house. I'm sorry to say. That ain't happening. They fought too hard, and too much blood has been drawn for them to let you just wash your way and you just gonna take over everything here in America. You ain't doing that. We got this romanticized version of what liberation entails. We think we can work on getting a few acres of land somewhere here in America, and then everything will be all right with you. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
For a nation of people to establish a liberated state, that means you have to have control over your own land base and your own production facilities and your own protection facilities and institutions and individuals. And they must be numbered in the millions. White folks here in America got something like 3 to 4 million military personnel. I know Trump is trying to whittle it down and all the rest of that, but they still got millions.
Yep.
You and I are not going to liberate ourselves, and you can't protect what you call yourself liberate. They're going to come right in and take it from you. First of all, they ain't going to let you do it. So I ain't even have to worry about no coming in, taking nothing from you, because you're not going to do it.
Yep.
Facts.
Our ticket out is an ocean away. Our role is to take our knowledge and skills back home so that we can do the work that needs to be done before they take our home away from us.
There it is.
That's the page. And again, I know a lot of us don't want to hear that because we've become nice and comfortable here in the land of our oppressors and destroyers. But see, black folks, the bottom line is we done wore out our welcome, whether we like it or not. You done wore out your welcome. Your days are numbered. And if we don't get our act together, it's going to be numbered. We ain't even being able to go back home.
Right.
Because the killing field is going to be over there.
Yep.
So we need to be clear. We got some serious work to do. And we ain't got forever to do it.
Facts.
What I have going now is a book. Latest work just came out. Here's a copy of it right here. I don't know if you all can see it. I know the the light is shining kind of bright on it, but that's the name of it. That's the book. Jewels of Thought and Action for the Resurrection and Reconstruction of the African World. Almost 600 pages worth of study.
Can't wait for it.
Worth of prescription. What we need to do. Not so much what we need to know, but see, you can't do it if you don't know it, right?
Right.
So I always put a little something in there to let you know what you need to know. But the stuff that's being put out is stuff that you and I gonna have to do. We can't just know it and read the book. Okay, Pop, I got what he said. Yeah, that was some heavy stuff. Man, that was some heavy stuff in there. Heavy stuff don't mean nothing. We have had a whole bunch of heavyweight stuff.
Facts.
We got a whole mountain of heavyweight stuff. We got heavyweight stuff, and I say this all the time, and I'm gonna end it on this. We got heavyweight stuff that comes out of ancient Kemet.
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Thousands of years.
And I'm talking thousands of years ago. And I mean, that stuff is heavy. When I read it the first time, it blew my mind. I said, wait a minute, hold it. You mean to tell me we've been knowing this stuff or have had access to this stuff for all of this time, and we ain't got no farther than where we are today? Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Because we have not been acting on it. Oh, we've read the material, but we haven't united, organized, and acted on it. And if you don't do that, it don't matter what knowledge you have.
Right.
There
If
it
you
is.
ain't acting on it, that knowledge for all practical purposes means nothing. It amounts to a big fat zero. You walking around here, got all this knowledge, but you ain't got no freedom. You ain't got no independence. You ain't got no power in the world. But you spouting all of this knowledge about what you know about this, that, and the other. It means nothing. And until we get it together as a people, and I'm directing this last comment to those of us who consider ourselves to be leaders or scholars. You and I have got to unite. And I know that that's a tall order because we all individualistic. We all got our own little camps. We all got our way of looking at things and seeing things. And we done took the position that, listen, I got my thing, you got your thing, and let's all just do our own thing. And then maybe at some point we'll meet in the middle at some point in the unforeseen future. That ain't the way liberation is achieved by nations.
No, it's not.
We have to have common directions and common goals.
Thank you.
That means we've got to hammer out what is the best way for all of us to go.
Yes.
That means I'm going to have to put my stuff on the table. What I would be bringing to the table is social anatomy. That's what I'm bringing. Hands down. I don't have to talk about nothing else. I'm going to bring social anatomy to the table. That's what we need to work with and build upon. Everybody who's there, and I want the heavyweights too. I don't want no little scrubs. Everybody who think they got something to say and something to offer and built organizations and institutions and all the rest of that, we need to sit down together and come to a collective consensus on what we need to do. Because if we don't, we all gonna be checking out. And I don't care how much your consciousness is and how big your following is either. Yeah, because we like to pull that card on, I got so many followers and all the rest of that. That don't matter at all.
See, you hitting on something and we don't got the time to discuss it.
So this is what we have to do. That's the book that I have out, and it is available. So hopefully African people will recognize I've put out the information. The number that you can call, 773-437-7170. At that number, that's a number that connects to Cash App or Zelle, and you will be able to buy a copy of the book. The book is $40. It's a 20% discount on it because normally it's $49.95. But I put a 20% discount on it, so it's $40 for the book. It's $5 for the $5.05 for the shipping, and for $45 you got you a heavyweight book that's talking about solutions.
There you go.
Not just problems. Oh no, all of us should know the problem by now. And if you don't, that's on you. What we need now is solutions. What must we do to get out of the death trap that we in? And that's what this book is dedicated to. So again, I thank you and my dear princess there for being here and making this platform available for us elders who have come to share our insight. This is great. I love to see it. And we must take it to where the ultimate end is, which is our liberation. Okay. And nothing short of liberation. I'm not settling for just being a more comfortable slave at all. And none of us should settle for that.
Ashe.
Ashe. And on that note,
there you have it, family.
Ujeb-Seneb.
Reya'Sekhmet is out.
I say.
Sacrifice and pay the price.
Sacrifice. Well, say it again.
Sacrifice and pay the price.
Say it again one more time for the family way in the back.
Sacrifice and pay the price.
And pay the price. That's right.
Peace and love is the key. Ra represents the essence of truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, and humanitarian reciprocity and righteousness.
J&J-Life podcast. The J&J-Life podcast was created to give the family a place and platform to embrace their spiritual awakening and consciousness. J&J-Life
Life from Art is dedicated to showcasing the beauty of our culture and educating our people and those that want to learn this work. Smash that like button. Peace and love, it's Nikki.